Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to be with you once again. One day away from big noon kickoff up on the hill. We're 23 hours away from kickoff as Utah takes on Texas Tech bright and early at Rice-Eccles Stadium. We're not so far from Rice-Eccles Stadium right now. I'm at the Smith's Marketplace downtown. You know what I'm talking about? It goes from 4th South to 5th South. It goes from 5th East to 6th East. It's a big old chunk of real estate, 2 levels, groceries, home, clothing, shoes. They've got everything you could possibly need here. There is no excuse if you have tailgate needs of any kind for your breakfast tailgate tomorrow, for your tailgates for the rest of the season. Smith's Marketplace can handle every one of those needs. Come down, see us, say hello. We're downstairs. If you walk in, the main door's downstairs, and you hang a right. We're near the Starbucks, right by the deli section, right by the produce aisles. We have a pile of tailgate passes to our ESPN 700 Ultimate Tailgate Experience. We have a pile of Smith's gift cards, good for you today, use today, or really any day that you feel like it. All you got to do is come in, answer an easy trivia question, or prove to Cynthia, who's out here with me, that you're wearing Utah gear, that you're a Utah fan. You know, even if you're a BYU fan and you want to pretend you're a Utah fan, you might get a Smith's gift card. You're just going to have to do a good job of pretending. Show today and every day is brought to you by our friends at Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. Utah Sports Bar, they had the special taste testing with Outlaw Distillery yesterday. Hopefully some of you were able to stop by and take advantage of that. They've got the craft cocktails and the craft food menu going on all day, every day. And if you don't have tickets to Utah versus Texas Tech, show up at Big Willie's tomorrow, grab some brunch, and watch it through your lunch hour and enjoy the time there at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. We're gonna dive deep into this Texas Tech football team today, into Utah's matchup with Texas Tech, into how these two teams really kind of match up with one another, because there's too much that we don't know. I've told you all week long about the relatively untested nature of both of these teams. We're going to go by the numbers. We're going to go by the rankings. We're going to go by the predictions that I've got, that you've got, that Lee Sterling's got. He's going to stop by later in the show. Urban Meyer is supposed to be joining us in 27 minutes. The former head coach at the University of Utah, 22-2 as the head man. One of the most important figures in the history of Utah football. Set to join us. He's part of the Big Noon set, and, of course, back in town for Big Noon kickoff. We also have Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, the aforementioned Lee Sterling, and then Coordinator's Corner at 1 o'clock as Jason Beck, the offensive coordinator, up this week. We'll talk about the right way to attack a Texas Tech defense that is incredibly talented. They just are. They spent the money necessary, and they went out and they got talent that they felt they could solve some of the problems of old or of previous seasons. They made the biggest splash in all the transfer portal in Lubbock, Texas. In Lubbock, Texas. And we've spent a lot of time talking about the how and the why when you have the financial assets available to you because of billionaire donors, and that billionaire donor happens to be someone who also played football for you, and his business partner is also someone who played football for you. It opens different doors. But those doors being open doesn't guarantee anything. So one of the big questions I have is not only about the kind of big picture, can you buy wins things, but it's also about the importance of this game in the 2025 Big 12 football landscape. It's out on Twitter at Real OC Sports, 877-353-0700. I want to phrase it in an optimistic way because I feel optimistic about this game, but I don't know if there is a way to kind of manipulate the words to make it anything other than, can you win the Big 12 conference if you don't win this game? How crucial is this game in the efforts of winning a Big 12 championship in 2025. How important is this game truly on a schedule for Utah football that still has plenty of tough contests? A schedule for Texas Tech football that has to fit in with your plans moving forward, has to fit in with the contention in the conference. And, of course, you got to get wins against not only Utah if you want to take it home, but against Houston on the road, against Kansas, against Arizona State on the road. You got to beat BYU at home if you're Texas Tech. Both of these teams have, I think, reasonable schedules. There are a lot of people out there that have said Utah football schedule is one of the tougher ones in the Big 12 Conference. Well, the non-con was not, right? And the conference schedule, thankfully, most of your toughest games you have at home. Now, I think the exception to that is BYU, October 18th. Kansas State, which we thought was going to be one of the tougher teams in the conference, and it may eventually turn out to be that. That's a home game for you. Arizona State, that's a home game for you. I still think they're going to get right, but they're probably not back in championship form this year. Sawyer Robertson and Baylor, I'm probably still not as sold on them as some people are. That's a road game, so that's a tough one. I mean, it doesn't come down to only this for the season for Utah football. So, how crucial is winning this game in the efforts of winning a Big 12 championship? Not just from the, there's tiebreakers, and you got to make sure you win these tiebreakers. You got to have a good conference record. There's also the psychological element here. If your first Big 12 game, you go out and you take it to, on your home field, if you take it to one of the other teams, or the other team in some people's minds, that a lot of folks think is, a front runner to be the best in the Big 12, if you go out and you take care of business and you do so in convincing fashion, or even if it's just a razor, you get the win here, you're now in the catbird seat. You're now in the pole position. You are the team to beat now in the Big 12 Conference. If you don't win this game, you still have plenty of get-right opportunities. But how much does the psychological effect hurt you if you come out and you don't play that well in your first test against real elite competition? And by the way, I'm making assumptions when I call Texas Tech real elite competition. Because like I've said many, many, many times on the show this week and leading up to this week, we don't truly know. 877-353-0700 is how you get a hold of us. Tell me what you think. You can call us. You can text us. You can swing by at Smith's Marketplace in person if you'd like to, and tell me how crucial you think this win is, not only for this week, not only to climb the rankings, not only to be a top 10 maybe, but more likely top 12 team when the new AP poll comes out, but to win it all, to be the conference champ that you probably have to be if you want to be a playoff team this year. I don't think the Big 12 Conference is a two-bid league. I've said that many, many times. James Peterson back in our Broadway studios producing today. James, I'll just throw that at you. How crucial is a win in this game on the big picture grand scheme of the whole season? Not just Big Noon is here, and you got to put your best foot forward, and you got to show who you are on national television. But from the tiebreakers and the psychological effect and the establishing a pecking order in the Big 12 Conference, how important is a win here?
I would say with how wide open the Big 12 is or seems to be going into this conference season, which begins this week for Utah and Texas Tech and many other teams in the conference, I would say that every game feels that way, OC, because especially now, because we don't know of the teams that are unranked right now and that maybe off to a shaky start in the non-conference, or maybe they're undefeated but they didn't look quite as dominant as you would like them to, a potential contender for the conference title you would like them to. Like, we don't know if they're going to end up being undefeated, 1 or 2 losses in conference play by the end of the season, and in the driver's seat, in position to be in the Big 12 championship game, winning some tiebreakers, or they're in without the tiebreakers. So I would say there's an argument for with how wide open this conference seems like it's going to be, and how it turned out last year. Certainly, like, you have to approach every game that way, especially one that has a team that has a number next to them at any given point in the season, and that happens to be Texas Tech this week. One that's spent as much money as they have, that's acquired, use that to acquire the kind of top end talent that they have. Like, I would say every game that has to be the approach, and especially one that is as talented on paper as Texas Tech. Now, we don't know. They may end up being paper tigers, like a lot of the USC teams in the Pac-12 era ended up being. We don't know. But because we don't know how this is, we don't really know how this is going to shake out. This conference is going to shake out come November. I think you really can't take any of these games for granted. You have to win. You have to go in thinking we got to go undefeated to secure ourselves a chance at the playoff. And of course, you probably won't. But you can't be like, this week we're playing Colorado, who's had a rough start to the season. That's not till October. We'll probably be okay. I mean, we saw like Houston was that team last year, and guess what happened last year? A lot due to injuries for Utah. You went in and lost. You lost to that Houston team. There was like, going in the season, you're like, of course we're going to beat Houston. So every game you need to do. Which,
by the way, this year you're probably not viewing Houston that way. We did in the preseason, and we're just like, oh yeah, Houston. I mean, Cincinnati. These are teams you're going to beat. Arizona, that's a team you're going to beat. Don't worry about those teams. And you got to worry about everyone. I mean, this is the way it works out in this conference. West Virginia, we look at West Virginia and we're just like, man, they just lost two of their best players a couple weeks ago.
Lost to Ohio.
Now,
not State, Ohio.
The backyard brawl against Pitt. Yeah. Like, West Virginia is not a team that's actually, there's a lot of people who've texted us this week who said that, they're worried about that is like that's a potential hangover effect game. If you could get it done against Texas Tech, you got to go on the road. Your most, I guess, ponderous road trip is going to be a week after playing Texas Tech on this huge stage. So there's a lot to look at. But I want to know from you, our listeners, at 877-353-0700, is this, I mean, must-win is overused, right? Must-win game is an overused trope in college football, and it's something that is, it gets exhausting to tell people that every win is a must-win. Every game is a must-win game. Yeah, I know. But the reality of the situation in the Big 12 Conference is your eventual champion is not going to be undefeated in conference play. All right? The reality of the situation is college football, as parity has increased over the course of these last couple seasons, your national champ is likely not going to be an undefeated team. It's more likely that they will be a one-loss team than they will be an undefeated team. In the Big 12 Conference, I think, I've stated many times, you're probably looking at a two-loss team playing against a three-loss team in the conference championship game. That's part of what forms my theory that this is going to be a one-bid college football playoff league. 4611 on the text line says, to be honest, either team could lose this game and still end up in the conference championship.
There's
also
true.
Lots of football still to happen this season. Don't get me wrong, I would love to see Utah win in convincing fashion, but it's still too early. And it absolutely is true. And you have
other
to look
side
no
of
further
the coin. Other side of the coin that I just brought up.
Utah's own history.
Yeah, it's the other side of the coin that I just brought up. It's simultaneously every game matters, and you can't get too far. You can't get too down when you drop a game because of how wide open this conference is.
This is from 7535. How crucial is this game talk? A lot like the talk going into our first conference game last year. I mean, yeah, you have to have the conversation. This one is a little bit different because we're not just talking about it being the first conference game. You're establishing a power structure, and that power structure can fluctuate and will fluctuate all season long. But how crucial is this game, not just because it's a conference game, not just because it's ranked versus ranked, but we are talking about two teams that came into the year with conference championship aspirations and expectations that are somewhat realistic. There's every Big 12 team came into the year saying, yeah, I mean, we sat there at media day and we listened to every coach and every player say, yeah, we're gonna compete for a conference championship this year. Are you though? Like, there's probably 6, which is more than most conferences have. At least we made the case at Big 12 media days that you could probably see the possibility of any of 9 teams making it in. And by the way, Houston and Arizona, who are undefeated right now, were left out of that conversation. And I still think they and UCF belong outside of that conversation. But the point is, you can't really be dismissive of anything. And you can't be dismissive of the idea that you can lose this game and still recover and make it to the conference championship game. You can also not cast away the idea that if you don't win this game, it could be pretty crippling to your hopes because there are tiebreakers at play. Depending on how you lose a game, there's always a psychological effect. Now, Kyle Whittingham and company are better at overcoming that than most coaching staffs. They're truly better at handling the week to week to week. But these players are human beings. These Utes are 18 to 20. How old's Kump? Like 24? 18 to however old Jaron Kump is. They're guys that are like, they're going to be affected by the outcome of this game, either on the positive side or on the negative side or some mixture of both. And it's something that you have to pay attention to. 18-15 on the text line. In JHD we trust this weekend. Baron Morton is going to be running for his life. Dampier Heisman campaign loading. He's already tied for 7th best in the country. That was our trivia question yesterday. He's got the 7th best odds to win a Heisman Trophy after 3 weeks of football play. Devin Dampier, New Mexico's starting quarterback a season ago. What? If he has that Heisman moment in this game, that's a pretty good place to build your case on national television with Matt Leinart, who already mentioned your name in that conversation and who has one of those trophies on his mantle at home. All right, with Urban Meyer, who's coached how many of those guys?
How many Heisman winners?
5 Heisman finalists.
Heisman finalists? Yeah. Obviously, Tebow was a winner.
Tebow was a winner.
And
we'll have to.
I think Braxton Miller
James, I'm gonna put
was
you,
Braxton Miller a finalist. I'll do the research.
James, you're gonna that's gonna be your homework assignment before we get Urban on. Maybe I'll ask Urban a trivia question. How many Heisman Trophy finalists has he coached?
I know. I just thought of another one from Ohio State that for sure was Dwayne Haskins was a Heisman finalist in Urban's final year at Ohio State.
I'm going to try to stump Coach Meyer when he joins us in 12 minutes or so.
I'm
going to try and stump him and say, Coach, what number did Sean O'Connell wear on your Fiesta Bowl team? Because that's actually a trick question.
It's not the one he was listed as.
46 in the roster, but when the only game that they actually cared that I dressed for, the Fiesta Bowl, was number 57. So there's 2 right answers, which means you got to figure that out. So we'll ask him that trivia question, and we'll ask him if James can get us a definitive answer here. If he knows as a head coach, he's going into the College Football Hall of Fame, and he's got one of the best resumes in the history of college football. And he's here in town and on campus this weekend in the old stomping grounds to watch Utah football take on a very good Texas Tech team. Or what we think is a very good Texas Tech team.
Yeah, I'm about to Google this, so I'm going to find out for myself. But was Alex Smith technically a Heisman finalist, or was he a little bit too far in the voting to be considered a finalist? I know he was up there.
He was a Heisman finalist.
Okay.
He was in New York, and he was 4th in the voting.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's a Heisman finalist.
I didn't realize he was. I didn't remember that he went to New York because typically, at least most years, it's the finalists. They whittle him down to 3. So I looked at the Heisman results on that and went, oh, he actually finished outside the top 3 in the voting, but he was invited to New York. So yeah, that's a Heisman finalist. All right. So I can think of at least 3. I will get the others.
There were 5 finalists that year: Matt Leinart, Adrian Peterson, Jason White of Oklahoma,
who ended up
and
winning.
Reggie Bush.
No, sorry. White was a couple years before.
USC had 2 Heisman finalists, and Oklahoma had 2 Heisman finalists.
And then
that same year.
And then Utah,
the
team everyone thought would have a Heisman
playing
final.
A game that old Sesame Street game. One of these things is not like the other. Alex Smith sitting there between 2 Oklahoma Sooners and 2 USC Trojans. First player in Utah history to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. Undefeated Fiesta Bowl season.
Have you heard
All-American?
Have you heard Alex talk about, because he's doing a lot of media now. Have you heard him talk about just how out of place and the imposter syndrome he felt as the number 1 overall pick coming out of that draft? And I think he probably felt that way in that room as a Heisman finalist too. Like he talked about a lot of his early struggles. Obviously, the revolving door of head coaches and offensive coordinators was a big part of that in San Francisco. But a lot of it was like he went from Salt Lake City, Utah in 2004, way less attention than Utes get now in 2025, to the number 1 overall pick and the whole world's eyes on you. He felt like, and he said he had years of like, I'm not actually capable of this. Like, I'm Alex Smith. I'm not Brett Favre. Like, anyway, he had to have, knowing him talking about his first few years in the NFL and being this guy going from relative obscurity to number 1 overall pick in like no time, he had to have felt at least a little bit like that in New York among those other guys as a Heisman finalist.
Well, he shouldn't have, and I'll tell you why. Because the numbers, he passed for 32 touchdowns and threw 4 interceptions in 2004. All right? That's 9.3 yards per attempt on 29.52. That was his yardage total. 32 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. All right? And then he rushed for 10 more touchdowns. He also caught 2 passes for 21 yards as the quarterback on those throwback passes. I think Paris Warren was the guy who threw those throwback passes, if I'm not mistaken. So Alex Smith accounted for 42 touchdowns and 4 interceptions in that 2004 season. Matt Leinart had 33 and 6. Adrian Peterson, who was second in the Heisman voting, scored 15 touchdowns. Jason White had 35 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and I bet Jason White had no rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
but let me look at
it. We were talking about traditional pocket passers statues back there. That was Jason White.
Zero rushing touchdowns and negative 56 yards rushing for White.
So all of his rushing yards were sacks, and they never did a quarterback sneak. Gotcha. At least not a successful one at the goal line. All right.
Now, Matt Leinart had 3 rushing touchdowns to go with his 33. So he accounted for 36 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Matt Leinart did. Alex Smith had better numbers than that. Alex Smith had a higher completion percentage than Matt Leinart did, the eventual Heisman Trophy winner. He had more yards per attempt. He was the team MVP by far. He was far more important to Utah's undefeated season than Matt Leinart was to USC's undefeated season. And Leinart won the Heisman Trophy, and Alex came in 4th. It is one of the gravest injustices done in the history of Utah football. He actually should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. He was the best individual player in college football. The touchdowns say it. The lack of turnovers say it. The numbers, period, say it. Alex Smith should have won the Heisman Trophy in 2004.
Yeah, and because of the state of college, I think today, I think it's evidenced by Ashton Jeanty. He didn't win, but how close he got to winning the Heisman Trophy last year, I think that's enough evidence to say today, if a group of 5 player to the caliber had a season like Alex Smith did, he would that player would either win or get a lot more love than Alex Smith did. 2004 group of 5 non-BCS, as they called it, was like, no, there's no way those guys are at our level. We're not going to no. Maybe okay, we'll invite them to New York. That's about as far as they did. They could bring themselves, the voters back then.
All right, I was 51 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, who, I mean, Louisville is effectively a mid-major, even though they're Louisville, right? Lamar Jackson accounted for 51 touchdowns in his Heisman Trophy season. So that's that's a really impressive number. But the case, I still stand on the idea. I'll die on the hill that if you really pay attention to the numbers and you really pay attention to how important that player was to their team's success, Alex Smith should have won the Heisman Trophy in 2004. If Utah had the reputation in 2004 that it does now, like if Devin Dampier has the exact same season as Alex Smith in 2004, where he accounts for 42 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, he will win a Heisman Trophy. Mark my words. All right, we got to take a break. Urban Meyer set to join us on the other side. Former head coach at the University of Utah, part of the Big Noon kickoff set. In 3 minutes, we're down here at Smith's Marketplace, downtown. Come see us. We've got tailgate passes and gift cards to give away on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792 FM, coming at you live today from Smith's Marketplace in downtown Salt Lake City. We've got tailgate passes to give away for the big noon kickoff, Utah versus Texas Tech. You got to be there early. You got to show up early. You got to show out, wear your red, be loud, be crazy. Best foot forward for the Utes at Rice-Eccles Stadium as they take on a highly ranked and we think potent Texas Tech offense. Now, defensively, here's where it looks right now, okay? These two teams, there's just a lot of similarities between them. Texas Tech so far has only given up 2 sacks on the year. University of Utah has given up 2 sacks on the year. I bring that one up first because I think that the pass rush rate, the pressure rate, the success rate in your pass rush is going to be massively important for both Utah and for Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech spent a lot of money and kind of rebuilt some of their brand around that defensive front especially. Right now, Texas Tech is number 2 in the Big 12 Conference. They have given up only 124 yards rushing on the season. 82 attempts for 124 yards by the Texas Tech opponents. They are giving up 1.5 rush yards per attempt as a defense. Now, BYU, they've only played 2 games. BYU is giving up a hilariously low 0.2 yards per attempt right now to their opponents. Utah has given up 3 yards per attempt. They've given up 1 rushing touchdown on the season. 90 total carries against Utah for 270 yards. Arizona State, pretty close behind. Again, these sample sizes are incredibly small, so it's hard to draw too many conclusions from what these numbers mean. But right now, Utah and Texas Tech rank pretty closely in terms of their standing in the conference. Total defense, Utah is tied for 3rd in the conference right now. Spoiler alert, BYU has the best defensive numbers in the conference through 2 games. They've only played 2 games, which helps in that effort. And their defense is super legit. So when I'm giving you these rankings, just assume that BYU right now, through 2 games for them, 3 games for everyone else, and 4 games for Kansas State and Iowa State, BYU is on top. Utah close behind. They're tied with Houston right now for 3rd best in total defense. Both of those teams are giving up, through 3 games, 224 total yards in these games. Utah's about 4 yards per play. Guess who's right behind them? Texas Tech. Texas Tech they've given up 230 yards per game so far this season. The yards per play, Texas Tech actually has Utah very slightly beat. They're at 3.72 yards per play that they're giving up. And that has been the biggest change for Texas Tech. Texas Tech, when you go back through the years, their defense has been much more of a liability. Texas Tech, why did they spend that kind of money in the transfer portal on defensive talent? Well, because last year, 2024 season, Texas Tech was 15th out of 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference in total defensive ranking. BYU 1, TCU 2, Utah 3 when it was all said and done. Texas Tech was 15th in the conference in total defensive ranking last year. So far, they are 4th through 3 games, and that feels like money well spent right now. Now, if you're Utah, your scoring offense has been the biggest difference for you, right? Scoring offense for Utah last year, 14th in the conference. This is the power of the transfer portal, people. 14th in the conference last year. The Utes, number 2 in the conference. Guess who's number 1 in 2025? Utah scoring 45.7 points per game through 3. Texas Tech has put up 58 points on average in their first 3 games. They've scored 23 touchdowns to lead the Big 12 Conference. This is one of the top, most prolific offenses in the country through 3 games. Utah's defense is going to have to play better than it did in weeks 1, 2, or 3 in order to stop Texas Tech. Now, even if they play just as well as they did in these last 3 games or so. I think that translates to Texas Tech, maybe if you're exactly what you were in the first 3 games. I think that translates to Texas Tech scoring about 34 points. That's a winnable game for the University of Utah. I think you can score at that clip against a Texas Tech Red Raiders defense that is drastically improved, but still we have to find out if against elite competition, and most importantly against an elite offensive line, they are capable of stopping things. And I throw the terms elite around probably too casually 3 games into a season, because I have called already on the show today, on a Friday, with a very small sample size, 25% of the way through an entire college football season. I've already called Texas Tech's defensive front elite, when really we don't know, and I've already called Utah's offensive line many times elite, because I'm a believer, but I'm not a knower. It's a faith-based proposition right now rather than a knowledge-based proposition right now. I think they passed the eyeball test. I think when you see the film from last year and you see the film from this year and you see the reputation that they have built, and you see that even when you had to sub some bodies in and you had to give a little precautionary rest to Jaron Kump and you had to let Michael Mokafisi recover from a little stinger, that even the backups come in and you don't necessarily skip a beat. I think what that means is that Utah has an elite offensive line. But there is a significant difference, especially in the college football world, between believing and knowing. We come out of Saturday knowing a little bit more. Still believing regardless of whatever the result is. Seriously. But knowing a little bit more. Having more knowledge. More of a sample size to base things off of. More film to base things off of. Other important numbers in this one. Well, you know what? Actually, 877-353-0700. As we're waiting for Urban Meyer to text in. Excuse me, to call in. That'd be funny if all he did was text in. Tell me where you think this game is decided. There are matchups that we've talked about all this week. Tell me the number that you're most worried about. Third down percentage, pressure rate, sacks given up, sacks attained, yards per rush. I mean, the points are the one that matter most. But tell me where you think this one ultimately is decided at 877-353-0700. 9025 says, OC, why aren't you talking about the important stuff like the kicking game? Special teams wins games, baby. 100% you're right. And I'm actually, in a twisted way, because I have that kind of a mind, maybe mildly relieved that you had a couple missed field goals last week, because now you've gone through that. All right, James just chirped in my ear. Urban Meyer calling us in 2 minutes, which means we're going to take a break now. We're going to come back with the former head coach of the University of Utah football team so we can have a longer run with him after the break. Sean O'Connell Show coming at you live from Smith's Marketplace downtown on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show on a Friday, getting you ready for big noon kickoff. Utah versus Texas Tech going down up on the hill tomorrow morning. Ranked versus ranked. National spotlight, exactly what you as a Utah fan are waiting for. We're lucky enough now to be joined by Urban Meyer, one-time head coach at the University of Utah. That Fiesta Bowl season, undefeated and magical, where I lived the glorious and glamorous life of a scout team walk-on for Urban Meyer. Coach, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. What an incredible, I didn't realize that you were part of those intense practices that we had back in the day. So that's good. You got to live it.
I did get to live it, and we have many hilarious stories about the walk-on perspective that I've shared with our listeners. And, you know, I say it all the time. It's kind of a cliche thing, but even when you're the low man on the ladder on a team like that, it teaches you a lot, and it sets you up for success in other things and in a lot of ways. And I still am grateful for the time I spent on your team and in Matt Bayless's weight room and working with those guys. So it had a big impact on my life, Coach, even though I didn't have a big impact on the team.
You know, I was a walk-on myself, so I actually, you know, you look at Grady Marshall, I was with Casey Evans last night, and those guys are walk-ons. And, you know, that's one great thing in my mind about athletics. No one cares. You know, if you're going to go out there and be great at what you do, you know, I actually gave the walk-on more of an opportunity than the scholarship guy because I understood it. And I don't know if you remember, in 2004, we did the Utah Man. And I wanted to get student body involved. And so Billy Kinsey was his name, and he ran down on kickoff. We had the sky cam on him, and I wanted, you know, to me, he was all part of the must, the whole, you know, this whole incredible student group that follows the Utes now started in 2003. And I wanted somehow to engage our students, you know, a little bit like the 12th man. That was my idea, is somehow let's get the 12th man here at Utah, and it became the must.
Yeah, Coach, we just talked about that last week, actually. I shouted out those same names that you just did. So really, really cool to walk down that memory lane. I want to talk about Utah versus Texas Tech. Obviously, this is a huge matchup for this year's team. And, you know, one of the things that we see in the transfer portal is movement, and especially the impactful movement of elite players. Now, Utah picks up Devin Dampier, and our hope is that he proves to be an elite player. They also retained offensive tackles like Caleb Lomu and Spencer Fano that, again, we believe are going to prove to be elite players this year. You've been around a lot of them. You've coached a lot of them. Can you tell me how you decide what eyeball test the guy's got to pass for you to say, all right, that's someone who can be elite? Texas Tech's probably got a couple as well.
Sure. Well, we always broke it down into two categories, and I think most people do that, is one's the intangibles and one's the mindset grade. And intangibles are you look at Utah's offensive line, those two tackles. I mean, you talk about the intangibles. My gosh, they got the size, the length. They have it all. And then you look at Dampier, and maybe he doesn't. You know, there's not many quarterbacks that are 5'11" and you know, would just have his measurables that exist. But then he'll flip over to the mindset, and that's the toughness, that's the competitive spirit, that's the intelligence, that's the adaptability. Those are all things that you look for. And what a great example. You got these two tackles that I don't know them well enough to know about the mindset, but I know enough about this quarterback after watching him and doing my research on him. You know, he's got really high grades in the mindset. That's why he is who he is. So absolutely, you look at both, but you know as well as I do, and you witnessed it as a player, there's a lot of guys that grade very well in the physical qualities like height, size, speed, but they're not worth a damn because they don't have the mindset. I'd take mindset any day over the measurables.
So when you've got guys who have the measurables and we think have the mindset, and they've also got a couple of defensive ends that appear to check pretty much every box, and that's an elite matchup. You've coached in every situation in college football. What does play calling, what does scheme look like when it's strength versus when maybe you can exploit an advantage you have out of those offensive tackle edges?
Well, what you just said is exactly why 50-year-old men sit in Sunday meetings till 10 o'clock at night, Monday meetings, Tuesday meetings, because regardless of the style of offense you play, it could be the spread option or it could be the I formation pro, West Coast. At the end of the day, there's got to be matchups, and it's your job as a coach to identify them and then exploit them in the game plan. And then it's the player's job to execute it. So what you just mentioned, those are NFL players against NFL players. The defensive ends at Texas Tech and then the offensive lineman at Utah. That's going to be the strength. I'm anxious to see, the skill. Utah still has not utilized their outside receivers, and I don't know about Texas Tech's secondary. I think everything else is pretty much established. You're going to see really good players go against really good players. And then you flip the script on the other side. Texas Tech throws the ball downfield more than anybody. And how is Utah's secondary, relatively young secondary, new secondary, going to respond to these downfield shots they take? So you have one team launches it down the field, Texas Tech. You have another team that doesn't. I think they're going to a little bit more tomorrow. But you don't see that at all. You see more of the controlled passing game and a quarterback that's an athlete that's on the move all the time.
Urban Meyer is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for a couple more minutes. Former head coach at the University of Utah, part of the Big Noon on Fox coverage that Utah will be receiving tomorrow. Early kickoff up there at Rice Eccles Stadium. Make sure you, the Utah fan, gets there either on the set or in the stadium or both. Put the best foot forward for this Utah football program. Coach, we've seen this Jason Beck offense use positionless production where, they're using defensive players on offense. The Hunter Andrews kid is kind of a tight end, but he's also kind of a running back, and he runs the Wildcat. And obviously this was the same stuff that, were characteristics of your offense at the University of Utah. And I still talk to and love Ben Moa, and hopefully you've gotten a chance to keep up with him lately. But when we're talking positionless football, tell me how valuable that can be to confuse an opposing defense, and maybe how it can hide some of your inadequacies on offense if that's the case.
Well, the way Utah does it is similar. When we remember we had a running back issue with in 2003 here at the U. Brandon Warfield got hurt. Mike Liddy got hurt, and I was we're at Air Force on live on ESPN national television without a running back. The good thing is we had some adaptable players, those interchangeable, and number one was Ben Moa. We also had Paris Warren. And so we taught Ben Moa how to take direct snaps, and he did. And we don't win that game in triple overtime against Air Force without Ben. He's the guy that threw the first jump pass, and I always like to say in college football history, I don't know if it is or not, but Ben Moa threw that in triple overtime, the jump pass from the quarterback position. So I love that because whenever you run single wing offense, you gang a blocker, but you don't want Dampier to always run it. I mean, the guy's not real big, plus he's your franchise guy right now. You want him, you don't want him to take those hits. So I love what Jason Beck is doing. I love the adaptability. I watched it practice yesterday, and that's a pain in the butt for the defensive coordinators to deal with when you're interchanging who's taking snaps.
And on a big picture look at a game like this one, Coach, it's the first conference game for the Utes. It's ranked versus ranked. It's you guys being here in a national television spotlight. And all the conversation around the Big 12 Conference is that it's wide open and there's all this parity and that these are two of the teams that should be in that conversation throughout the year and into the end of the year. If you win a game like this, does it have a tangible effect on pursuing that championship through the course of the next, whatever it is, 8 weeks? If you lose a game like this, how do you overcome something like that and still put yourself in that championship conversation over the course of that same time?
I'm sorry you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you're asking about the conference and how the obvious is this is the, arguably, you throw Iowa State in there too, but these are the two top teams right now in the Big 12. And when you watch them play, I think they are the two top teams in the Big 12. But the thing is, I mean, you got to shoot everything you got to try to win this game, but you have to remember it's also a long season. So regardless, if you win, you got to pump the brakes and make sure you keep working because it's a long season. If you lose, you got to rally them back up and make sure everybody understands that it's far from over. These two teams will be competing. It's a matter of who can stay healthy. But, and I see Iowa State in there too, but Kansas State I thought would be. They don't look the same, Kansas State. But I think Iowa State, Texas Tech, and Utah, one of those will get the rings at the end of the year, Big 12 championship rings.
Coach, if a random walk-on that 2004 team had walked up to you back then and said, 20-ish years from now, you're going to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, what would you have said?
I said, get back in the weight room. We don't have time to talk about stuff like that. We have to let's go. You remember the math drills, right?
Oh, Coach, I'm airing a grievance with you right now because I was a pretty damn good wrestler, and I ended up moving on and winning a championship in the MMA world, and I never got to do the mat drill. That would have been something I actually could have impressed with, and I never once got called out for it. So I'm airing a grievance with you that you never gave me that opportunity.
You're an MMA guy?
I ended up being – I went on to you know what? This might be a fun trivia. I don't think you've coached any other people besides me who've moved on to fight in the UFC or win a major promotion MMA belt, but you did in one case.
Yeah, the other teammates are lucky you didn't, because you would have got after their butts in those mat drills, man. Wow. Pleasure to talk to you, though.
Yeah, no, it's really great, but I phrased that question wrong. How much does it mean to you to be going into the College Football Hall of Fame here in 2025?
Well, I'm kind of at the reflection point of my life. I'm 61 now and kind of got the chance to look back. I never did when I was coaching, and I look, and I think my greatest skill set was that I just surrounded myself with great players and great coaches. You look at Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of the Utah. I've never seen a better coach than him. I'm still very close with him. I know the ins and outs of what Kyle believes in and how he works, and there's none better. I look at Morgan Scalley, who will eventually be the head coach here, and I got to coach him. I saw Lewis Powell yesterday, and then I had dinner last night with Casey Evans and Bo Nagy. So, and I'm going to see Corey Dodds tomorrow. So I just, you start looking back at the history of college football, and I'm lucky to say that I'd put my guys against any that's ever played or my coaches against any that's ever coached.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving us some time today. And, again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. It had a big impact on my life that season I spent with you and being along for the ride to that Fiesta Bowl. So thanks for that time and thanks for today, and we'll see you up there on the hill.
Great talking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Urban Meyer, head coach, University of Utah back in 03 and 04. Headed into the College Football Hall of Fame here in part of the class of 2025. National champion at University of Florida and at Ohio State. Had a hell of a run at Bowling Green, by the way, before he was at the University of Utah. His overall record as a head coach, 187, 32, and 0. 85% win percentage as a head coach. 61 years old, probably not leaving the set to go back to a college football program as the head coach anytime soon, but you never know. Big thanks to Coach Meyer for jumping on. And, man, the names, by the way, that he just mentioned, Casey Evans. Casey Evans was a preferred walk-on at the University of Utah. Played special teams in that 04 season, ended up being a great safety, as most of you know, at the University of Utah. Bo Nagy was a corner, a return man, a great leader on that Fiesta Bowl team. A Skyline High School kid, former Mr. Football in high school, if I'm not mistaken. Bo Nagy, still a guy I look up to and admire, and absolutely awesome. Lewis Powell, is on the staff. Morgan Scalley, is on the staff. Lewis was already gone from the Utes when we went on that undefeated run in 2004, but we're lucky to have him back. I mean, Urban Meyer, as complicated as his overall college football legacy is, because it is, his time at the University of Utah, I don't think is, and I don't think was. And whatever that means, or however you want to interpret that, I think that we are lucky in that we got the very best version of Urban Meyer for the 2 years that we had him. To my knowledge, and I have, I guess, some kind of insider information that most people don't, but probably not the closest insider information, at least not compared to some of those guys I just mentioned. But what we know about his time at the University of Utah was that he was highly demanding coach, a disciplinarian, a guy that kept things, on the right track, demanded academic excellence, behavior and cultural excellence from his players. This is him at the University of Utah. And, of course, in the weight room, legendary, the stuff that we had to do. The results on the field, legendary, and helped build on what Ron McBride had done, springboard this program into where it became a Power 5 team, became a Power 5 champion twice in the Pac-12, and is now in the Big 12, expected to be in the hunt for a championship and potentially a college football playoff team. All of those things are, at least in part, a product of the very brief time Urban Meyer spent at the University of Utah. Big thanks to Coach for coming on. You can find that, if you didn't get to listen to it live, at ESPN700sports.com, on the ESPN 700 Sports app. Shout out to James and to the Big Noon PR for making that thing happen. That's a lot of fun. Hour number 2 begins with Bill Riley, the voice of the Utes, on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Hour number 2 of the Sean O'Connell Show coming at you live from Smith's Marketplace in downtown Salt Lake City. It goes from 4th South to 5th South. It goes from 5th East to 6th East. It's the whole block. It is 2 levels. They've got everything you need for your tailgates. They've got everything you need for your home, for your garden. This is maybe the store I frequent most in my own life. This actual location. It's great to be broadcasting here as you get ready for big noon kickoff and early kickoff. 10 a.m. It'll be Utah versus Texas Tech. And the man on the call is Bill Riley. He joins us now on Utah's #1 sports talk. Bill, voice of the Utes. What a coincidence. How are you?
I'm glad you got the address right this time.
Yes, that's right. The last time I told everyone we were at the Smith on 9th and 9th, and it's actually on 8th and 9th, and Bill had to correct me.
Well, I just didn't want your listeners to wander around and hit the gelato place in Barbacoa and not be able to find you. So.
Bill, I'm emotionally scarred and surprised that I just had a conversation with Urban Meyer, and he didn't have a distinct memory of my contributions to that Fiesta Bowl team. I'm dismayed.
Well, that is disappointing because you and many others were the backbone of that team. You know, those guys, the Sione Buhas and Steve Fafitas and Josh Savages and Morgan Scallies don't get there to where they are without you giving them those good looks, Sean.
That's exactly right, and I'm glad you appreciate that, Bill. At least somebody does. In all seriousness, this is a big one tomorrow, and this Texas Tech team we think is good, just like we think Utah football is pretty darn good. I say that there's more similarities between their sample size, right? Oregon State is technically like a power level team, but also kind of not, the same way UCLA is a power team, but also kind of not. Is Wyoming the best team that either of these two squads have faced to this point in the year?
They are. I said that to somebody yesterday. Wyoming, scrappy Wyoming, is indeed the best team. UCLA is a hot mess. Cal Poly's a 1AA. Wyoming is a solid G5 football program. They're probably going to be 6-6, 7-5 in the Mountain West this year. Oregon State is a hot mess in Corvallis. Arkansas Pine Bluff is Arkansas Pine Bluff, and then Kent State is one of the worst Division 1A programs out of the MAC. So as crazy as it is to say, Utah's probably got the best win of the 6 games both these teams have played.
So I have looked at the numbers through those glasses that the prolific scoring we've seen from Texas Tech, while I think it's going to be characteristic of what they try to do this year, is also heavily influenced by the level of competition that they have played. You have to do the same thing with Utah to some extent, but it's 58 points a game right now for Texas Tech. For the Utes to have this be a winning effort tomorrow morning, or I guess it'll be afternoon by the time we get to the final score, but tomorrow, 58 ain't going to be the number that you hit for the Utes. You don't want to have to chase that. You don't want that kind of shootout. How many points do you have to shave off that 58-point average for Texas Tech to make this Utah's kind of game?
You probably want to shave 28 off that number. I mean, I don't think you want the game necessarily played in the 30s. I think for Utah, you'd like to keep Texas Tech right around that 30-point mark. And then that means you're going to have to be slightly better than that 30-point mark. And to be fair, Utah's averaged 45 a game, and if their field goal kicker didn't have the yips last week, they would have been closer to 50 points a game. So they're not – I think they go about it 2 different ways. Texas Tech is a much more explosive offense, at least to this point. Utah is a much more I don't know what the proper word is, deliberate, straightforward. They eat a little bit more time up offense, but I think both are very effective in what they do. But I don't think you're going to win a game probably in the 40s tomorrow. I think you probably want the game to be, in that 28 to 31 point range if you're Utah.
For you, what's the biggest key matchup in making that? When Utah's defense is on the field, and they're going up against, two big transfer offensive tackles at Texas Tech, and they're trying to get to Baron Morton, who's not nearly as mobile as Devin Dampier is. Is it that matchup? Is it the one in the defensive secondary? If you're going to stymie some of this scoring, how do you do it?
Well, what I'm most interested to see is the secondary, Sean. But that's complementary with the pass. If the pass rush gets home, that helps the secondary. But Utah really hasn't seen anybody that has thrown it effectively yet this year. Nico Iamaleava is a really good quarterback surrounded by horrific talent. The guy at Wyoming is not a great quarterback. He had a little bit of success. Cal Poly is just Cal Poly. So for me, if you're going to slow the pass attack, you've got to get some pressure on Morton. You can't have him sitting back there all day. But I'm really anxious to see how Utah's secondary matches up with the pass game, because Texas Tech is a team that is not a check down team. They'll throw to Jacoby Williams a little bit out of the backfield, but they like to take shots. Baron Morton likes to throw the ball 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. They're going to take deep shots. We haven't seen that this year, so I'm very curious to see how Scooby Davis and Jackson Benny and Smith Snowden and others, Teo Johnson, Nate Ritchie, hold up against this Texas Tech pass game.
We talk so often about non-conference opponents that are, kind of subpar, and how you leave things in the playbook offensively, and you wait, and you don't show everything. Defensively, Morgan has not gotten overly exotic with pressures. You've been able to pressure opposing quarterbacks with 4. How much further do you think Morgan Scalley goes into his bag this week?
I think he'll probably have to go a little further in his bag. I was talking to Kyle Whittingham earlier this week. The Texas Tech tackles are enormous. They're both 6'8". They both have really, I think one 6'6", one 6'8". They've got really long arms. They aren't maybe the quickest of foot, but when you're rushing the passer, guys that are long like that they're just a little bit harder to get around. So you'd like to think John Henry Daly and Logan Fano and Cash Dillon that you could get rushed with 4, and maybe sometimes you will. But I don't think that you can expect all game long against a good, I don't know how good, but I think they're a good offensive line, that you're going to be able to just rush 4. So my guess is going to be that Morgan's going to have to get a little bit more exotic than he's been in the first 3 games. But that just goes with playing better competition. And as we know, Texas Tech is one of these teams. They spent big time on the defensive line, and they invested pretty good on the offensive line too. So I think if you think you're going to get – it would be the greatest thing in the world for Morgan Scalley if they could rush 4 all day long and get pressure. I'm just not sure that that's going to be the case all day long. I think you'll be able to do it a little bit, but I think you're going to see, a little bit more exotic. You're going to see them bring a corner, a safety, a linebacker from time to time tomorrow on Morton too. And again, that just goes with, remember, he's a veteran quarterback. This is his 5th year at Texas Tech. It's his 2nd year as a full-time starter. You're not going to fool that guy a ton with just a straight 4-man. So I think you're going to have to give him different looks to change things up a little bit too.
Bill Riley is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. The voice of the Utes will be calling the action bright and early. Big noon kickoff means 10 a.m. Mountain Time. This has been a point of conversation all over the place this week, and I can see it from both sides. You want to be a creature of routine and habit sometimes as a high-level athlete, but also you're 21 years old and you got 12 shots at playing a football game in a season. I feel like they're going to be able to figure it out. And Texas Tech has to deal with the same variables and even more because they're on the road. How do you think the kickoff time affects this game, if at all?
I don't think it has any effect on it at all, Sean. It's going to be 70 degrees and sunny at kickoff. These guys are 21, 22 years. To me, this is the silliest. Nobody ever talks about when you go to Hawaii. They talk about, you're playing in the islands. Yeah, but you're also playing at, what might be 1 a.m. your time. Or what? It's just, I think this is the most silly, overblown storyline we've talked about all week long. These kids play at different times. Does Utah have the same kickoff time? Do any of these schools have the same kickoff time every week? No, they vary. In the NFL, it's different because you're kicking off at either 11 or 2:30, and sometimes you'll play overseas in Europe and something like that. I don't see this as being a big deal. To me, it's a bigger deal when you have to sit around the hotel for 9 hours and you kick off at 8 o'clock at night than getting up, having a meal, and going to the stadium. I don't see 10 a.m. being an impact for either one of these teams. Do you?
I really don't. For the points that you just made and for many others, this is the job. This is what your entire week is geared for. This is what your entire life, in a lot of ways, as a Utah football player and as a Texas Tech football player, is geared for. If they tell you to do it at 10 a.m., great. If they tell you to do it at 4 p.m., great. If they tell you to do it at 1 a.m. because you're in Hawaii, also great. You're going to play the game when the game's in front of you, and I just don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I have acknowledged I think it matters more for the fan, right, for the person with the season tickets who's got a Ute Conference football game they're supposed to be coaching or attending. It's much more of a factor for the other 50,000 people who are supposed to be there than for the teams on the field.
Sean, this is a point of thing. We never hear anybody in the Big Ten or the SEC complain about kickoff times. Well, it drives me crazy. If you can't make it, if your son's got a football game, your daughter's got a soccer game, hey, I totally understand. But you're probably going to give your tickets to somebody who's going to go and enjoy the football game. There's going to be 51,444 people in standing room at that game tomorrow, and that's going to be that. Kickoff times are kickoff times. This has been the case for 10 years, 15 years in college football, and we've known about this for a couple of weeks now. So, the people that have those things, it stinks. But, you make a choice. And, yeah, if you want to go watch your son play Ute Conference football, go do it. Or your daughter play soccer or volleyball, go do it. But you're probably going to give your tickets away to somebody, and you'll be able to watch the game or listen to me and Scott and Sly or whatever it might happen to be. The kickoff time conversation I just feel like we're the only people in the world in this part of the country that talk about these things, and everybody else just shows up and goes to games.
Is Utah going to be able to run the ball against this Texas Tech front? Because there's a lot of conversation about, especially Romello Height and David Bailey, and they were brought in because they're big-time pass rushers. But to this point, and with the the knowledge that it hasn't been against anyone great, they have been really good against the run. This Red Raider defense has been able to stop everyone else so far, but different offensive line, different running back talent, a quarterback that can move. Are the Utes going to be able to move the ball on the ground?
It'll be interesting to see. Those guys are really good edge pass rushers. They added a couple of really good tackles as well, one from UCF, who Utah played against last year, and the other young man from UCF, Northern Illinois, Stanford, and anyway, we'll see. What's interesting is the four guys that they really heavily invested in, if you look at their career numbers at those other places, they didn't really put up huge numbers. It wasn't like David Bailey was getting 11 sacks a game at Stanford. Now, he's wildly talented, super athletic, but he hasn't necessarily put it all together. Now, maybe this is the year he does it. So I'm really interested to see, and that's another, again, the secondary is the most interesting one for me. That second most interesting one's probably going to be that battle in the trenches with the Utah offensive line against that defensive line. I would be surprised if Utah can't. I don't know if they're going to run for 300 yards on these guys. I think that would be the dream if you're Kyle Whittingham and Jason Beck, because that means you're controlling the clock. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be an opportunity to run the ball, and especially if you can have a little success throwing it too, and having the mobile quarterback. Devin Dampier gets those bonus yards too, just by, if the play breaks down, everybody's covered downfield, he goes and picks up 7 or 8 yards. So will they line up directly? I think they'll be able to. I don't know if they'll have great success all day long, but I'd be surprised if they don't have some success running the football. If they don't, that's a credit to Texas Tech, because that means that defensive line and that money they invested in that defensive line has really paid dividends.
What kind of day are you expecting from Devin Dampier? I mean, he's 73% completions right now. He's leading the team in rushing to go along with his passing efforts, and he hasn't turned the ball over yet, as I knock on wood when I say that. What kind of day are you expecting from a guy who has been so far so really, really, really good in a Utah uniform?
Well, it really depends on how the game plays. Devin has not had to force anything. Utah really hasn't had to play from behind. And there's a chance tomorrow they may have to. Texas Tech is really good, and they're really explosive. We've seen Devin Dampier really be able to play within the flow of the offense. They have been in control. They've been able to kind of dictate their own terms. We haven't seen him in many must-need passing situations. We haven't seen them down 7, 10, 14 points and really have to throw the football. I hope we don't see that tomorrow. I'd love to see Utah playing from in front all day long. But, at some point in time this season in the Big 12 it might happen, and tomorrow might be the day that happens. So I'm going to be genuinely curious to see when they have to push that ball downfield just a little bit, what that pass game looks like, because really the pass game so far this year has been set up by their ability to run the football. And that means you're calling your own shots. It's a different situation when you're down double digits in the second quarter or early third quarter, and you're in a little bit more of a needful passing situation. So the one thing about Devin is, at least so far this year, he's been a really good decision maker, and he's had a lot of options. And some of that credit goes to Jason Beck, too, because Jason's called a really good game. There were 3 really good games, and he knows what his quarterback does well. But it will be interesting to see, because every quarterback goes through this. Very rarely do every team, do you lead every game in the year. So if they do get behind, that's where it's going to be interesting to see how Jason calls it and how Devin deals with it.
Bill Riley for a couple more minutes here on the home of the Utes, ESPN 700. You can hear the call right here. Pregame will start at 6 a.m. tomorrow, 10 a.m. kickoff. So that means
that's Porter Larson pregame. My pregame starts at 8. I don't have to get up at the crack of dawn.
Correct. That's right. Porter and company at 6. They'll go from 6 to 8. Bill, Sly, and Scott starting at 8. The Kyle Whittingham injury report was hilariously and predictably sparse. And, we know who's out, the season-ending injuries. Logan Fano has been used sparingly to this point. Dallas Vakalahi has been unavailable, but I've been told they're optimistic that he's going to be a factor at some point this season. For Vakalahi, we'll start there. Do you think we see him against Texas Tech?
That I don't know. I didn't get a chance to get out to practice this week, so I wasn't able to see any of that stuff. So on the Vakalahi front, I really couldn't tell you.
Logan Fano is, I think, he's kind of crucial to this whole defensive effort. John Henry Daly and Cash Dillon and everyone else, they played really well. But Logan Fano is a captain on this team. He is one of the most talented people on this team. I think you kind of need Logan Fano in this game. And everything I have heard, every conversation I have had, is that, the precautionary resting has been exactly that. So is Logan Fano an every down kind of guy against Texas Tech?
I would be surprised if I don't know what, again, haven't been to practice. I don't know what the reps have been this week, but this is such a big game, and he has played. He played limited snaps last week against Wyoming. I would be surprised if we don't see Logan Fano. He just is that type of competitor. This would seem like the type of game that he would want to participate in. So, again, I don't know for sure. I haven't been he doesn't share the injury report with me. I don't get any kind of extra insight on that. But my if I had to guess, I would guess we'd probably see Logan Fano tomorrow.
Well, we're all just guessing at this point. That's just the way it is covering games there, getting ready to cover games in college football. So this Texas Tech team has – look, they've brought it all together with financial opportunities, and last year they were the 15th best defense in the Big 12 Conference. This year so far they're like number 4. Utah is the flip side of that equation, but just offensively. I mean, we're seeing the transfer portal has borne its fruit for these teams, for many teams all over the country. The question I have about Texas Tech in particular is, you didn't just bring in a few key players. You brought in like all of your key players for the most part, with the exception of Baron Morton and some of those wide receivers. All of the people that are big-time difference makers on this Texas Tech roster are transfer guys. And that is the nature of college football to some extent, but it's the opposite end of the Utah football spectrum where there's so much consistency, there's an established culture. Even when new guys come in, the famous phrase is, you become us, we don't become you. The fact that Texas Tech is more of a mercenary team, at least in this year, does it play into the result? Does it play into tight game situations if it gets to that point at Rice-Eccles Stadium, etc.? Because I'm kind of hopeful that matters, but I don't know if it does.
I don't think it does. I would think if this game was maybe played in week 1, where these guys hadn't really played together, maybe, but they've played 3 games together now. And I know it's against lesser competition, but they still have 3 games plus a fall camp to really get to know each other. And so I don't think it is. Now, I don't know what the culture and all that stuff in the locker room is because you haven't faced adversity, any of that. But from just a getting to know each other and playing together, I think having those 3 games under your belt probably helps them. I don't – if I had to pick one side or another, I don't think that plays a role in it.
Is this a tight game? Is this a high-scoring game? I know we talked about earlier. We hope that it's not a shootout. Is this a game where one team or the other gets exposed as like, hey, 3-0, but not a real 3-0 paper tiger? How do you think it actually plays out from a close game competitiveness standpoint?
I think it's a competitive game, and I think it's a game in the high 20s, low 30s. I just think both these offenses are good, and it's hard when you've got really, really good offenses to keep them out, especially when you've got an offense like Texas Tech, which can be so explosive. You can hold them for a couple of series, but they like to take so many shots down the field. When you have a team that takes 10, 15 shots down the field a game, they're going to hit a few of those. So even against a good defense, you're going to hit some of those things. So, and then you've got Utah that's more of a deliberate, come straight at you offense, and that can wear you down. If Utah can have some success running the football, Sean, and moving forward with things, the one thing they can do is, and you know this, if you lean on a team enough, you can wear them down. Especially, too, with a Texas Tech team. If they have a couple of quick strikes, then that defense has to come right back out on the field again. I think it's going to be a competitive game, and my hope is Utah can kind of run the ball, control the line of scrimmage, and by maybe mid to late third quarter, really begin to lean on Tech just a little bit. But I do think it'll be really competitive tomorrow. Again, we just haven't seen enough from the competition both these teams have played. So that's why I think both these teams are in a pretty similar place. Elite offense for Tech, very good offense for Utah. Elite defense for Utah, very good defense for Tech. And, and maybe home field advantage plays a little bit of a role with the Muss and 51,444 and the altitude a little bit. Though I was told this week Texas Tech is at like 3,000 feet above sea level. You wouldn't think that, but they are. I was told that by a coach that knows things not a football coach, but a coach that knows things in the athletic department. And he said, altitude will be a little bit of an advantage, but not like it is when you play those teams right at sea level.
Huh. Who knew? West Texas was so high.
Yeah.
All right. Before I let you go, Devin Dampier's off the table because quarterback is always the answer. But who is the most important individual Ute in this game? Not wearing number 4.
The most important Smith Snowden. Smith, I'll split that.
Like
Smith Snowden or Jackson Benny. Their best receiver is their slot receiver. It's the Aiken kid, Coy Aiken. He's their number one guy that Baron Morton looks for. Depending on who's playing the slot, whether it's Snowden or Benny, that's the most important player for Utah. How's that?
I like that. I've been calling him the Ginger Austin Collie just to make people hate him, that Coy Aiken kid.
Well, we'll see if he lives right on and off the field this Saturday. And somebody cover him
Bill,
on 4th and 17, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, let's not put that juju into the world. Appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for moving to accommodate Urban Meyer's conversation. And we will see you up there. Have a great call tomorrow.
Thanks, Sean. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bill Riley, voice of the Utes. here on a Friday edition of the Sean O'Connell Show. We're coming at you live from Smith's Marketplace in downtown Salt Lake City. I have Utah Ultimate Tailgate Experience passes. I've got Smith's gift cards to give away. It's actually not going to be me giving them away. You're going to walk up to the table here in the produce section right next to the Starbucks. Cynthia's going to be like, hey, flash me a Go Utes. Show me that you're wearing some Utah gear. Do 10 push-ups, whatever. Just earn your keep, and we'll give you a Smith's gift card and some tailgate passes. Also, Cynthia's smarter than me, and she actually reads things. I was like, these tailgate passes are good for 1 plus 3, okay? It's you plus 3. So whoever holds the little tailgate pass can actually get 4 people in. I was like, hey, make sure you give everyone 2 or 4 of those so they can bring their friends. Read the fine print, people. I can't believe I'm 42 years old and I still have to be reminded of things like that. All right, Daily Dump. How about this? Barstool, Dave Portnoy, the founder, in town in Salt Lake City, in Utah, for I believe he said it was the first time in his life for this game, because Barstool and those guys, they're now part of the Big Noon Kickoff. And he was so impressed by something here in Salt Lake City that there's a brand new feature coming to Barstool because of it. I'll tell you what we're talking about next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. a round of applause in our daily dump for the Utes equipment, for the Utah Red Zone store, for everyone associated with gearing up Utah football fans and Utah basketball fans and Utah gymnastics fans and fans of everything University of Utah related. So there's been a lot of conversation this week about, like, where do you send Dave Portnoy, Barstool guy, for his one-bite pizza review. I haven't seen the pizza reviews yet, but he went to two places. He went to the Pie, and then he went to Villaggio Pizza. Okay, so I don't know what the ratings are yet. I know that the Pie is not really his style, and it probably isn't going to do well, but that's fine because we love it and always will. Now, Dave has not been to Utah before. Barstool doesn't have a heavy Utah presence like they do on the East Coast and in other major cities like Chicago, places like that. But I think that might be changing because Dave Portnoy, whether you love him or hate him, he is a machine in the sports media world and has built a very, very successful business. He's been so impressed by one thing here in Salt Lake City that a new feature is coming to Barstool Sports. He does the pizza ratings. He's now going to do campus bookstore ratings because he went to the Utah Red Zone store and he was so impressed by the selection, so impressed by how cool the gear was, so impressed by all of it, that he decided he's going to start giving ratings. He says Utah right now is the best one he's ever been to and gave it a 9.2, which who knows what that means on the scale. It's now going to be a thing. He's going to all these different campuses as part of Big Noon Kickoff. He's going to go into the bookstore. He's going to drop, as he said on his tweet, $500 to $1,000 on gear that he may or may not ever wear. And then he's going to give a rating for the bookstore, for the experience, for the selection, et cetera, et cetera. So congratulations to the Utah Red Zone stores for being so impressive that it's creating a new feature on a very, very popular website in the United States of America. That's a pretty nice little feather in your cap if you're the Utah Red Zone.
Yeah, it's great to get a 9.2 out of 9.2. I mean, that can't get any better than that. He didn't say what it's out of, so we can just say that's all it's out of. No, it's probably out of 10. But that's outstanding.
As far as we know, that is if you're grading on a curve, that's 100%. Okay, so
absolutely.
You're the best in the business,
the best he's rated so far. Absolutely. Take that, other campuses that he's visited for Big Noon Kickoff and hasn't rated your store. Take that.
And hasn't officially rated your store.
That's amazing. And rated in two ways. Rated and rated, it sounds like, the amount of money he's spending.
So, I mean, new feature, rating college bookstores. Fair warning to all college bookstores, I'm coming and I'm going to rate you. The one at Iowa State was a 5.8. Oh. Utah is a 9.2.
Wow, he retroactively giving a disparaging rating on a previous location. All right. Feel even better about the 9.2 for Utah Red Zone. Proud sponsors of ESPN 792.1 FM, by the way.
And the next post, by the way, 44 minutes ago, Dave Portnoy. So good, I came back again today. A picture of the south side of the campus store at the University of Utah. So congratulations, Utah Red Zone. You're becoming a thing.
It is a great store. Even if they weren't sponsors, I'd be saying this. It is an outstanding store. So much different, so much varied selection in shirts and jerseys and whatever else. Like, and it's huge. Like you walk in and you're like, okay, it can't be much bigger than this, and you can just keep walking and walking, go upstairs. Like it's a huge place with all kinds of Utes gear.
Most people probably don't even realize you can go up the stairs and get more cool gear up there.
Yeah,
but you can. And now they've redone part of it, so it's got this kind of neat little convenience grocery store in there. It's a really lovely place. I take my daughters there, and they hide in the clothing racks, because they have those circular racks. and they go in there,
Play hide and seek.
and they hide, and and I'm always like, oh, where are you? I actually, one of my early core memories, I got lost at a mall doing that, where I was hiding in the clothing racks, and then when I came out, my mom had like wandered to another section, and I went the wrong way in pursuit of her. You know, it was at like a J.C. Penney,
Yeah.
which ultimately are just big circular or like hexagonal stores, right? And she had gone right to like the next immediate section, right, and I went left, and then I was lost, and I had to cry and ask somebody to call for my mom on the intercom.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
maybe I shouldn't let my kids do that, but they do.
The amount of times when you're a kid, I had the similar experiences at like grocery stores most of the time, getting you went down a different aisle, I don't know where you are, and the amount of times you're like crying or about to cry, and you have to find the customer service desk to call in the intercom, and how scary that is. Like, that's quite the thing for a kid to have to experience. So I hopefully your girls don't. Hopefully you don't just abandon your girls while they're playing hide and seek in clothing stores, in the red zone stores. OC.
The problem is, so my oldest one, she's like, she's a big kid now. My middle child, though, is very diminutive. She's small.
Yeah.
She can fit into places where I don't think she's going to be able to fit in.
You're
She
going to
can hide
lose her
very,
at
very
some point.
effectively. Yeah. I've lost her in her own bedroom before. I'm like, there's no way she could be under that. That's not big enough to be hiding under.
And then she
So,
did.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's inevitable. Anyway,
Right.
we're not here to talk about my kids getting lost in the campus store on the Daily Dump, brought to you by Valley Plumbing. When we were preparing for our conversation with Urban Meyer, anticipating that conversation, we were talking about, should we quiz Coach when he comes on? We only had 10 minutes with him, so I didn't want to get into stuff that was not particularly related to the current events. But we did, and we're going to go up to the set after the show is over, and maybe
We'll
I'll
quiz
give
him
this
there.
quiz question.
Yeah.
He coached the Heisman finalist at the University of Utah in Alex Smith, who should have won the award, by the way. And then obviously at Florida, he coached the Heisman Trophy winner in Tim Tebow. He went on to Ohio State, where he coached a lot of great players. How many, James looked it up, how many Heisman Trophy finalists has Urban Meyer coached in his career?
Do you have a guess?
I'm going to say 4.
That's very close. It is 5.
Ooh.
And two of them were finalists more than once. Do you know who those guys were?
Tebow.
Tebow, yeah. Okay.
And,
Alex Smith was not in 2003, so it's not Alex
No.
Smith.
Alex Smith was not one. So Tebow was a finalist twice, and it's got to be one of his Ohio State quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Was it Haskins?
It was not. It was Braxton Miller.
Oh, Braxton Miller.
And actually,
Braxton Miller, I've forgotten all about you.
let me clarify. Finalists, we are defining it. So the finalists, the official finalists, are probably however many they invite to New York. Sometimes it's only 3, sometimes it's more. But we're, going backwards here. We're defining a finalist as top 5 in the voting, because a lot of years they do invite all 5 of those guys. Braxton Miller. So I apologize. Braxton, I messed that up a little bit. Braxton Miller was top 10 twice. He was top 5 once. So he was a finalist only once, but then top 10 another year. So that's my bad.
Okay, so Tebow's the only multiple-time finalist.
Yeah, the only multiple-time finalist back-to-back years. The year he won, and then 2008, the year after. And then Braxton Miller was top 10 twice. One time in the top, he finished 5th. And then J.T. Barrett was 5th one year. Dwayne Haskins was top 3 in Urban Meyer's final year coaching at Ohio State in 2018. And then Ezekiel Elliott, also the only other top 10 guy. So he had 6 guys in the top 10 and 8 different years with where he coached a guy who finished at least the top 10 in Heisman voting. Like that's an insane amount of talent he coached, OC.
That's not bad. Alex Smith was the best of all of them, though.
Better than Tebow.
And you better admit it. Okay, maybe not. Not as college quarterback.
Better in the NFL.
I mean, Alex went on to a better NFL career. So
take that, Tim Tebow.
You know what? I wish as a college coach, right? Having coached so many great guys, Alex Smith is still the best overall. When you talk about NFL too, Alex Smith, the best overall player that Urban Meyer has coached. Is Ezekiel Elliott better than a top 10 Heisman guy and then having a bunch of really good years?
That's tough to.
Maybe we'll ask him when we go up and see him.
Let's see what he thinks, because that's tough to evaluate with all the other talent he had at other positions that just aren't as high profile because they aren't the quarterback. You know, there's got to be the Pouncey. Right. Pouncey was a great center for a long time from his Florida days.
Yeah. Problematic, those Pounceys, by the way.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a quick one here. Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, joins us on the other side. We'll handicap the games coming up this weekend on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. Big weekend in college football, big weekend in the NFL. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show, coming at you live from Smith's Marketplace in the heart of downtown Salt Lake. Anything you need to get ready for your tailgate. They've got the deli trays, they've got the drinks, they've got the ice, they've got the coolers, they've got tables, they've got chairs, they've got tents if you go upstairs. They really have anything you could possibly need. We have tailgate passes and Smith's gift cards to give away. If you're a Utah fan, swing on by. We welcome Lee Sterling, best handicapper in the business from Paramount Sports, to talk about the lines on the games coming up this weekend. Lee, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Great. Big games, both of our backyards. We got one here in Miami against Florida, big rivalry game. And I'm going to say this right out of the gate. I think this is going to be – you're going to play the most talented team you're going to play all season this weekend.
Okay, so that has been part of the conversation this week that,
Yep.
Is this the toughest matchup for Utah on the Big 12 slate? You still have Kansas State, who's underperforming. You got Arizona State, who's got some players, but you think this is the best they're going to face?
No question. I'm grading players here, and they've played no one so far. So it makes it a little bit tougher. But you don't see that many teams get more than half their defensive transfers are guys that played every single game last year at other schools and excelled. So I still think there's a way that can be had, and we'll go through that once we get to that game. But it definitely is the most talented team, I think, in the Big 12.
All right, let's start with your NFL pick for the week that you've offered our listeners here. Then we'll get to the college football games. Ravens are 6-point favorites against the Lions. The Lions had a big statement victory and a big bleep you to their former offensive coordinator. What do you think happens this week against an AFC power like the Ravens?
Yeah. Well, it's possible this could be a preview of the Super Bowl. I think a lot of people would like to see it. They're tired of some of these same teams in the Super Bowl. Kansas City they dominated for so many years, and I think people are tired of the tush push. So two exciting teams, two great offenses, and I just think, though, Detroit might have the better defense. People remember them last year. The last thing we saw was they were horrific on defense. Why? They lost 7 of 11 starters. You can't compete at a high level in the playoffs losing that many key players. So they're starting to get back to where they were before they had all these injuries. And what did they do? They looked terrible in the first game. They got punched in the face and didn't punch back. But I think they got back that mojo last week and took care of Chicago, and they had 3 sacks in that game, and I think they're going to get a couple against Lamar Jackson here. I like Detroit here. This line's too high, 5.5, 6 points. I think the last team with the ball wins. I'm going with the wrong team favored. Detroit straight up 34-31.
All right, Lions in that one, and let's get to the college football world. Michigan, Nebraska. If we're talking about the 90s, this is like 1 versus 2. This is 3 versus 1, whatever. Michigan and Nebraska both trying to figure some things out here in 2025. Wolverines are 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, and I think if you looked at talent-wise, maybe 1 through 40, which team has the more talented roster? I would say Michigan. But games aren't just won on talent. I think that it's about matchups, and I love Dylan Raiola. I think he's starting to come in his own. Got a great offensive coordinator in Dana Holgorsen. Dana Holgorsen, not a great head coach, but one of the top offensive coordinators out there. He can turn a lot of offenses that rank in the 40th to 50th range into top 10 units. On the other side, Bryce Underwood is going to be great. This is a matchup of 2 former number 1 high school recruits back-to-back years. Bryce Underwood's going to be great in the pros, but he's not there yet, and the play calling is so conservative. 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, until they were down in that Oklahoma game, everything was underneath. To the tight end, flanker screens. You got to be a little more aggressive than that, and they haven't opened up the playbook enough. 2 other reasons I like Nebraska. Matt Rule, 5-2 as a home underdog when he was at Baylor, and then Michigan's been without their head coach for 2 weeks, Sharon Moore. I don't think he's a great head coach, but I think they miss him a little bit. And who's the interim coach? None other than Biff, Back to the Future, Poggi here. You remember him. He's the guy that wears those sweatshirts. He cuts them up above the shoulders. I think the wrong team's
yeah.
favored again. Give me Nebraska straight up 24-21.
Where was Pogge at Charlotte for a while? Is that where he spent a bunch of time?
Charlotte.
Pogge?
Yeah, Charlotte. And he loves going
Yeah.
for it on fourth down. So if you see them go for it 4 or 5 times, that's a Biff Pogge special. All right.
All right, I was ready to write off West Virginia 2 weeks ago when they lost their best running back. They lost their best wide receiver to injury for the year, and yet they found a way to win the backyard brawl. They are 13.5-point dogs against Kansas. How do you see this one?
Pitt just absolutely just threw up all over themselves in that game. They should win that game. They play that game 100 times. They win it 92 out of 100 times. I mean, West Virginia was so bad, they rotated 3 different quarterbacks, and not because of injury, because they couldn't get the job done. They finally went back to the starter. They were down 10 with 5 minutes to go, and what did Pitt do? Sat in the prevent. Now, they're going to have to come up after playing the backyard brawl, winning it, and then now they got to go on the road and face Kansas, who very misleading final. They were leading Missouri 21-7 in that game. They lose by 11 with a defensive score in the final minute. And that bye week, I think they're going to be ready. Their offense is going to explode. Kansas big, 41-24.
BYU was idle. They had that early season bye. Their defense has been absolutely smothering. But like many teams, they still haven't played anybody. Is East Carolina somebody? BYU 6.5-point favorites on the road. Does that defense travel? Does the freshman Bear Bachmeier find a way against East Carolina?
Well, if this was a pick'em, I'd lean BYU. But here's the problem. I'm not sure if you heard what happened to East Carolina last year. The other coaches led a revolt against head coach Mike Houston. He was let go. They ended up going with the backup quarterback, Caton Hauser, and he produced. In fact, this year he just keeps on coming on. He's thrown for at least 293 yards in all 3 games. Just not their day against NC State. Thought the play calling wasn't the greatest that day, but they are, since that game and last year, you go back 8 games, they're 7-1 against the spread here. Their defense isn't as good as the 3 points they allowed against Campbell 2 weeks ago, and 0 at hung on Coastal Carolina, but it's better than it's been in a while here, and I think Bear might have some trouble here. It's a tough place to play, and it's going to be hot, mid-80s for this game, so I think BYU is going to squeak one out here, 26-24, but I'm taking the points here. I think East Carolina takes this game right down to the wire.
All right, BYU wins, but East Carolina covers, according to Lee Sterling. The game of the week is UNLV versus Miami of Ohio, 3.5-point favorites for Dan Mullen and the Fighting UNLV Rebels. And then we'll get to Utah, Texas Tech. How do people find your advice at Paramount Sports?
How about this? I'll give it to the first 5 callers. I have a real strong lean on this UNLV Miami of Ohio game. Does UNLV roll, or is this game a trap? Just call 800-400-9741. We'll give it to you for free. And I probably get more calls, texts, and emails on this promotion this weekend than all the others combined. Why? It's the Baker's Dozen. A lot of my clients call it the world's famous Baker's Dozen because 13 games, not $297 or $197, just $97. Everyone loves the price point. They can try it out for 1 week, and it's an instant download. And you want to try it out. Like I said, we had some 12-1, 11-2, and 10-3 records on this. Baker's Dozen, just one place, ParamountSports.com.
All right, Lee. Let's break it down. Utah, Texas Tech, big noon kickoff, 10 a.m. We get to start our day with this huge matchup. Utes are 3-point favorites against the Red Raiders, the transfer portal darlings. How does it play out?
I don't know if I've ever seen a team go into the transfer portal and get so many new starters. I think they've got like 13 or 14 new starters here. How about this, a completely new defensive line? And they got some really good rush-ins, Romello Height and also David Bailey. Those 2 guys, they ended up coming over from Georgia Tech and also Stanford. they're going to come after you. You can run some screens on them and have success there. They over pursue sometimes, so they don't stay in their rush lanes. And I think their linebackers aren't great in coverage. They can be had. On offense, whenever they have Jacoby Williams in the backfield, anything that's third and long, blitz someone. He has trouble with blitz pickups, but they're going to get them some. And Utah, I think, is going to be able to score some also on Texas Tech. This is going to be one of the most exciting games of the year. I have Utah winning this game here 45-40. Sometimes the right team is favored. Utes take it against Texas Tech.
All right, relatively high scoring for Lee Sterling, but Utah coming out on top, beating the Red Raiders and beating the spread. Check them out at Paramount Sports. Lee, always love breaking it down with you. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk again next week.
You too. Take care. Be safe.
That's Lee Sterling. Look, we had a weird little delay on the connection, it seems like. But you got the point. He has picked your Utes to win against Texas Tech. He thinks that East Carolina covers the spread against BYU as well. Check him out at Paramount Sports. Give him a phone call and follow or fade whatever your predilection is. All right, we got Coordinator's Corner with Jason Beck coming up. I want to remind all of you that are out there driving around, swing on by to the Utah Red Zone store when you get a chance, and swing on by to Smith's Marketplace right now to see us. Ultimate Tailgate Experience passes to give away, Smith's gift cards to give away. We're at Smith's Marketplace downtown. You know what I'm talking about? 5th East to 6th East, 4th South to 5th South, the whole block. They have everything you could possibly need for your tailgate. We're sitting in the produce section, so they've got the incredible produce. Deli section is off here to my right. They've got the dips. They've got the deli trays. They've got the chips. Maybe you want to grab some fried chicken. You want to grab some wings. They've got all of it covered. If you go back a little bit further, they've got the meat and the seafood. That meat case, they've got the tomahawk steaks in there. I've got my eye on those bad boys. Whatever it is that you're looking for your breakfast tailgate and for your tailgates the rest of the season, they have it right here at Smith's Marketplace. And if you come by right now, we've got tailgate passes and we've got Smith's gift cards to give away. All because you like to listen to the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk. Coordinator's Corner next. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. You need lots to digest and lots to left to talk about. You need lots to digest. Sean O'Connell Show, Coordinator's Corner time. We talk with the offensive coordinator this week at the University of Utah. Maybe the most popular new citizen of Salt Lake City, Jason Beck, joins us. Coach, how are you?
Doing good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, look, it's been 3 great performances for your offense. I know that there's always things that you want to improve upon. Coming away from the Wyoming game where, the first half things bogged down a little bit, seemed to get it all sorted out in the second half. What was your biggest takeaway offensively from that game?
We were moving the ball really well. We were just stalling out at the, just outside the red zone, which led to quite a few field goal attempts. And then we had a turnover, down inside the 5. So if we could have capitalized a little more on those drives in the first half, it was really similar to the second half. The second half, we were just able to punch through and finish those drives versus settling for field goal attempts, and we secured the ball better. So nothing, really too drastic, just the ability to sustain and finish.
Obviously, that's going to be important this week. We've been talking for days now, and really weeks, about this matchup, about what it means for Utah when the level of competition goes up, right? What it means for Texas Tech, for that matter, when the level of competition goes up. Both of you are undefeated to this point in the season. Both of you are highly ranked teams with a little bit of hype around them, things like that. When you've been grinding the film, studying tape, seeing these talented players, a lot of whom Texas Tech brought in through the transfer portal, what are you seeing from that Red Raider defense?
Yeah, I mean, they're a talented group. They look really good on defense, so it's definitely, like you said, a step up with the caliber we're going against. So really good defensive line, edge rushers, strong big guys on the interior that have some twitch and some movement. The backers are really good players. In fact, both backers and the nickel Sam, they're returning starters. Everybody else, one of their safeties is also a returning starter. Everybody else is transfers, new players. And so yeah, really strong up front, and then really good on the back end, athletic, good tacklers. So yeah, a great opportunity for us, and looking forward to seeing how we match up and how we're able to execute against these guys.
The execution thing obviously is a question against any defense, and when you're talking about better players that you have to execute against, what does that actually mean, Coach? What does it actually look like? Are there plays in the playbook that faster defensive backs, faster safeties, more disciplined linebackers are going to have an easier time stopping? Are there plays better designed to, show them something else, to trick them? How do you manage the play calling, assuming, as we all do, that the talent on the opposite side is going to be better than what you've seen through the first 3 weeks, with respect to your opponents? Because, Wyoming played pretty well, and we saw Cal Poly trying real hard, but it's just a different level of football.
Yeah, exactly. UCLA, obviously talented players, but a different challenge. So Texas Tech gives you a different challenge schematically. They're a 4-2-5 personnel, but they play kind of this odd front and bring their pressures out of that. They'll give you some 4-man front, play a lot of quarters. So different schematic approach on defense, and we'll attack them according to that. But the challenge, the other side of that coin, is for the players, the guy you're going against is a little more talented. So your ability to execute your job and get it done is just, there's a little more challenge there. So coverage a little tighter. Guys working to beat blocks, plug the gaps a little quicker, a little faster. So it's just a matter of our execution being sharp, being physical, being spot on to where we are still winning our assignments and our jobs and able to do what we want to do at a higher rate than they are.
With respect to that, winning your individual assignments, do you as a play caller, do you like to go strength versus strength? I mean, you already told me that their front seven, especially that front four, that's probably on paper that's where they look like their best. And from what I've seen of them, it looks like they're kind of living up to that billing. But also, that's your offensive line is one of the best offensive lines in the country. At least that's what we believe so far. So as a play caller, do you go strength versus strength? Say, all right, you know what? We're going to set a tone here. We're going to tell them that their guys, as good as they aren't as good as our guys? Or do you try to find the weak point, or is it a mix?
It's a mix. I mean, we always want to focus on what we do best and who we are to get our job done. So we're still going to play to our strengths, to our advantages, and to our personnel, which is, like you said, our front, our backs, our quarterback. So we're still going to play to their strengths. But then obviously we want to look at, well, what's going to be the most difficult for them to defend and for them to stop, and what weaknesses do they have that we can attack. And so that's the game planning side of it you're doing every week to exploit and attack and scheme, with always wanting to do it with our best players and to our strengths.
We were having this debate on the show earlier in the week about, Ryan Davis has looked really good these last couple of games. N'Keary Rodgers has looked awesome. Devin is, of course, Devin. We'll get to him more here in a second. But it doesn't seem coincidental to me that guys who came with you from New Mexico, who maybe are a touch more familiar with the offense, even than the guys who studied as much as they could once you arrived, they're productive, they're comfortable, they're doing the right things in this offense. I also don't want to take away from them the fact that they're good football players, they're talented football players, and it's not just an experience advantage in this offense that is leading to them being more productive. But how much of what we have seen from them so far, the production we've seen from them, is related to the fact that they know exactly the fits, they know the timing, they have like that slight advantage in this offense over even their teammates?
I'd say the bigger part is who they are as players. The next part is, with that, just having a little better chemistry and a little more, year of experience doing what they're doing, adds to it. But, we brought them because of who they are as players and what they can do, and knowing that, if it was all kind of the chemistry and experience, we would have brought a lot more guys with us, but those guys are good players, and they have that background to just add a little more help to what they're doing.
Utah offensive coordinator Jason Beck is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Little Coordinator's Corner coming at you on Utah's #1 sports talk. Let's talk about Devin Dampier. I think we've seen a good mix for the first 3 games of, playing within what I believe is the system and using the improvisational abilities that his athleticism and strength afford him. We saw the play against Wyoming where the ball falls out of his hand and ends up still being a touchdown on a broken play. Let's start there, actually. How do you coach that? All right, when you're sitting down in film, you're saying, all right, well, because you could fall on that ball and live to fight another down, or you could make the play that he made, which, of course, is much sexier. How do you coach it?
Well, so we have coached, and Devin has. Now, I've never seen the ball fall out like that. But, say, a bad snap, where the quarterback kind of chases that thing down, peeks and has some awareness of, do I have enough time to pick this thing up? And if I do, then it's kind of push out of the pocket to give yourself a throwaway. Because if you're able to just throw that ball out of bounds, at least you avoid the negative yardage. And if pressure's coming down on you too much, then you need to just get on the ball and recover it. So Dev made a great decision that way with, I don't have pressure on me right now. I can scoop this thing up, kind of push the edge a little bit. And then he saw, Larry open, striking down, and was able to complete it, which was, a surprise to everybody, I think. So, yeah, that was just one of those, man, you get a minus because you dropped the ball, but then you get like 2 positives because of, what you did after the fact, which was pretty impressive. But Dev has been showing a really good knack of he's making the right reads and the right decisions at a high rate. But, the defense, they're doing great stuff too. And so when plays aren't there, those reads and throws aren't there, a big part of his game and what he does excellent is extending the plays. So whether he extends and takes off running, whether he extends and scrambles and throws it, that's something we always kind of work on and we develop. And with Devin, it's a really big part of what he just naturally does, that it's a matter of trying to get the other guys on the same page to stay active in scramble drill, work to get open, because play's never dead. He can just keep extending and get you on the scramble drill. And it's a huge positive that he brings to the offense.
I hope this isn't like mentioning a no-hitter while it's being thrown and jinxing it, but Dev's done a really good job of protecting the football so far. The whole offense has, for the most part, cracked down on the turnover issues. And I know that was a stated goal for him coming into the year, but as you watch it, you break it down, you see some of the things that, maybe he would have tried to force a throw last year, or maybe it would be the pressure would affect the throw more last year when you guys were at New Mexico or whatever. Why so far in 3 games has it worked so well for him, keeping that ball where it's supposed to be in the hands of your offense?
Yeah, just him growing and his experience as a player and that improvement. He's done a really nice job. You kind of saw that last year, the first half of the year. He had more turnovers in the second half because as he played and developed and got more experience, he improved that way. And so he's just continued to kind of build upon that. A lot of times your greatest strength can also be a weakness, and one of his great strengths is his ability to extend plays and his ability to throw on the run and make some really good throws. And, there's been some times where that's backfired and, you extend plays and you make a throw and you just kind of force it a little too much into coverage and it can get intercepted. So he's done a really nice job just growing, developing, and his experience in making those decisions.
How does that growth affect your communication with him and maybe more importantly, your play calling? I don't know if there ever was, a time last year or early this year, maybe in camp, that you're like, all right, well, this section of my playbook we're going to get to, but right now we got to make sure Dev is there. How has his growth affected your play calling?
Yeah, last year there was times where, and this goes with any quarterback, there's times you want to protect the quarterback from, making an error when you don't need to, and that effect that can have on his confidence and his performance. But with the time and experience with Dev, he makes great decisions at a really high rate, which then just opens that up as a play caller to giving more opportunities with the trust of making those decisions and knowing when to scramble versus forcing it, knowing when to just hold on to it versus trying to squeeze something in. And so that happened with any quarterback in their first year. That kind of happened in the process of last year, where you give them some of those opportunities and those experiences to grow and learn, and there's times you don't, and you just kind of manage it accordingly. But no, that process is definitely the trust in Dev to make decisions has just grown and grown as he continues to do a lot of really good things.
Jason Beck is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show for a couple more minutes. Coordinator's Corner brought to you by America First Credit Union. There was a little bit of hand-wringing about what was going to happen with the tight end position when it was announced that you were bringing, Dev in this offense from New Mexico, because there wasn't a ton of usage of the tight end in that system. And through the first 3 weeks, Dallin Bentley's shown some really good things. The hybrid Hunter Andrews has been awesome. especially last week. J.J. Buchanan has emerged. How fun is it for you to have those weapons to integrate into your offensive system?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about finding guys who are really good players and just really do things right and are trustworthy and putting them in positions to make plays and be successful. And so, whatever that looks like personnel-wise, we'll kind of go down those roads that's best for our team, best for our offense. And each of those guys has done a great job doing that through spring ball, doing that through fall camp, and continuing to do that through these first 3 games.
So the offensive line has played really well to this point, and they're up against their toughest test, as we've already mentioned. How do you think going against the defensive front that Utah puts out there, and especially the guys like Logan Fano and John Henry Daly in practice, will have your guys prepared for Romello Height and David Bailey in that crew?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, spring ball, fall camp, you go ones against ones, for your primary work. You're just constantly going against those guys. And so to be able to line up and go against really good players every day just helps you as a player to improve what you're doing. Because our defense challenges you with their ability and their scheme and their, individual matchups and in similar ways that absolutely prepares you for these kind of games.
How good are you? How natural is it to view every game the same? Because this is, for fans, it's a very different thing going against Texas Tech than what we've seen the first 3 weeks. The Fox Big Noon kickoff thing, the time slot, everything about this game is different for fans, and there's some difference at least for players. Coaches, for the most part, in my experience, are creatures of habit and routine, and you do your best to make sure that you grind just as hard for Cal Poly as you do for Texas Tech. But you're also a competitor, and you're also somebody who has a background playing the sport and someone who knows the magnitude of a moment like this one. So how natural is the process of making sure you keep it even the whole way through a season and you don't, respond with any kind of emotion to these moments, if that emotion could be a bad thing?
Yeah, no, it's pretty easy, pretty natural, both in terms of my personality, but also just what it is as a coach and in the season. And so, yeah, that thing's no big deal. Usually your big challenge is if you play a lesser team late in the season. If you had Cal Poly week 10, that week becomes a challenge to make sure everybody's at that same level of preparation, where when you have them early in the season, because of the excitement of getting your season going and home openers, those things kind of take care of themselves. And so all these games are big. They're great opportunities to get out there and compete and to play, and everybody wants to do their best. And so it's easy to be in that same routine, that same focus, that same mindset.
There's a conversation that happens every year about, how much of your playbook are you going to show against Wyoming and Cal Poly. That wasn't a question we asked about UCLA. Now that we know what UCLA is, that's it's a different kind of assessment in hindsight. But do you really protect portions of your playbook and save the good stuff for Texas Tech or BYU down the road or whatever?
Well, more so you're pulling from the portions of your playbook that are the best against their defensive structure and scheme. And so that dictates, a lot of it is because every week the defense is different and how you want to attack them is different. So that's a big part of it. Then there's elements of maybe you want to show some stuff against Wyoming and Cal Poly that a team has to now prepare for.
Sure.
So it may not be something you want to do against Texas Tech, but you want to show it in those other games because now they have to prepare for it and spend time, energy, effort to get ready for different looks and unbalanced and wildcat, just all kinds of different scenarios because they don't know if you'll do it against them. So you're kind of taking, there are some things that you're not putting out there, because you don't need it against a certain team. And then there's some things you are deliberately showing because you want other teams to have to prepare for it.
The chess match, Coach. I mean, how much of that is just, left to you, and how much of that you and Jim Harding scheming up some stuff and, like, let's try and trick them here, let's show them this, so they waste time on it, we're not going to use it. I mean, how much time is put into that decision-making process when you got a million other things going on too?
Yeah, that's just kind of a part of that process as an offensive staff in the course of the week as you're putting your game plan together and making those decisions. That's just a part of the process.
The early kickoff, how will it affect the pregame routine? Have you guys decided when pregame meal is, wake up time, how much that has to change from an average week?
Really just keep it the same. So everything, pregame meal, do it the exact same time before. So just keep them in the same schedule, the same routine. Kids are great. They're young. Whether they wake up early or you have some, 8, 9 p.m. kickoff. I remember we played at Hawaii, at like midnight, your local time. Kids, man, they are super resilient. And so you just kind of keep them on a similar structure, schedule, and they're ready to play.
Well, Coach, we're very much looking forward to this one. It's been awesome to watch your offense, take shape for Utah these first 3 games. Let's keep it going in week 4, and hopefully next time we chat, it's a still undefeated Utah team. Thanks for your time.
Good to be on with you. Appreciate visiting with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Utah offensive coordinator Jason Beck getting ready for Texas Tech. Big noon kickoff, highlight opportunity for Devin Dampier, for Nakari Rogers, for Wayshawn Parker, for Tobias Merriweather, for J.J. Buchanan, for this offensive line against an elite defensive front, at least on paper. We find out on Saturday how good that offense at Utah really is. Coordinator's Corner brought to you by our friends over at America First Credit Union. Lots to digest and lots left to talk about on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Proud part of Utah's ESPN Radio Network. It has become a time-honored tradition here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Every Friday, we air our grievances, 877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports. Unburden yourself, whatever's bothering you as you head into the weekend. Let it out. Let it out with us right here on your home of the Utes. Especially, we do not want you wandering up to the big noon kickoff set with any grievance in your heart, okay? So make sure you get it out today. 877-353-0700. James, you want to air your grievance? You want me to air my grievance first? How are we feeling here?
I can start, and
Okay.
I debated whether to air this one, OC, because I don't want our listeners to feel like we don't appreciate them and we don't hear them. But this particular one drives me up a wall. The last few years that Utah has started to get a lot more national exposure, which means more early games, right, OC?
Yeah.
The amount of people complaining about, what about all the others? Did they not think of me about all the other stuff me and my family got going on? Did Fox not think of me when they decided to put this game at 10 a.m.? No, they didn't think of you. And guess what? It's a good thing for your favorite team. It's actually a really good thing for your favorite team. You know, all the complaints that some of the same people make, OC, about, stop putting us at 8 and 9 o'clock because no one watches. Well, now they're putting you in spots where everyone's watching, and you're like, well, what about my kid's soccer game?
Well, here's the
and
problem.
flag football game.
Here's the problem.
It's crazy.
The grievance against – you have to pick a lane, right? You have to say, either I don't care if the rest of the country watches my Utes or the rest of the country watches my Pac-12 conference or whatever, or you have to say, awesome, now we have a time slot. You can't be mad at both things. You can't be mad at people not watching, and you can't be mad at people being kind of forced to watch, right? Because that's what this is. It's Big Noon Kickoff is designed to put your game on an island to where the college football junkie that wants to wager, wants to watch, wants to spend their whole Saturday on a couch with some chips watching college football doesn't really care that it's Utah and Texas Tech. They're here for the experience. They're here flipping back and forth between game day and Big Noon and those early games. They want college football. They're doing the split screen or the 4-screen or whatever it is, and you now have a prominent place. You're being given that spot. It is inconvenient in some ways, the same way a 10 p.m. kickoff is inconvenient. But if you really care about exposure for your team, then you have to embrace the inconvenience for now.
Yeah, and listen, I don't want to come off as like someone who's anti, family here. All right, I'm certainly not.
Yeah, why are you anti-family, James?
I'm certainly not.
Just because your kid won't start playing Little League sports for at least 6 more months.
6 more months, yeah. Yeah, we're getting them in early. But you have to, this forces you to make a choice. And I understand that it can be a hard choice, but you either miss the Utah football game because your kid really wants to play in their game, and you really want them to play in their game because you're teaching them about commitment and all that stuff. Great. So you're there for your kid, which, by the way, I don't think you'll ever regret. I think there's a chance you might regret missing some games because you decided to go to the Utah football game instead, but you're never going to regret watching your kid play sports, right? So there's that choice. Or you miss the Utah football game, and guess what? There's 5 others, 5 to 6 others every year. And I know that's a small amount compared to other sports, but good thing the game's on national TV, so you don't actually have to miss the game. I don't know. I get irritated with this. Make the hard choice and then live with it. It's not like it's not like this is actually really important stuff that you're going to regret missing, other than maybe missing some games that your kid's playing. I don't know.
And by the way, if we're talking about the young kids are the ones that play really early, right?
Right.
The really young kids. If you're talking about a kid in that age group, I know you don't want to set a bad example and set a bad precedent like, hey, we make commitments, but we can break them if something else comes up. So I'm not telling anyone how to parent. But if your concern is I want to create memories with my kid, like me coaching kids' team, me watching kid play sports or whatever, well, you could make a significant memory if you decide to take the kid to the game. I know that's easier said than done, and I know that there are ticket issues and things like that, but we've had a vocal minority, very small number of people that have still been bothered by this kickoff, and we've conditioned ourselves in American society to feel like we should always have our cake and eat it too, and that's just not reality. Sometimes you have to rob Peter to pay Paul. You have to make that sacrifice.
And honestly, Utah's been fortunate up until the last few years in the Power 4 era, Pac-12, Big 12 era of Utah football, that in that regard, you haven't had to make many of those sacrifices. Your kid could still play in their game earlier in the day, and then Utah football is late at night. Now we're in a different era of Utah football, and so these are going to come up over and over again. And if you remove yourself and the conflicts, the inner conflict you're feeling about these things, and look at how great it is for great exposure it is for your favorite football team, I think you'll see that it's worth it from that regard.
All right, okay. Understandable grievance that's actually sports related.
I feel better already.
Okay. This one has nothing to do with sports. Certainly has nothing to do with Big Noon Kickoff, that everyone should be doing their best to attend the game, the festivities on set before the game, whatever you can do, show out in your red. Put the best foot forward for this Utah football program. Mine is a leftover from Sunday night. This past Sunday night, we were flying back from my dad's birthday celebration in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My dad turned 70, and my mom and my older brother put together kind of a surprise party for him. My dad's a big train nerd, a big steam engine history nerd, okay? So there's this place in Warminster, Pennsylvania, where you can effectively spend the day and learn. You can drive the steam train. So we did this for my dad as it's actually kind of shameful that we waited till he was 70 to do this for him.
Yeah.
But in any case,
probably the best day of his life.
Like, his siblings came in, and some of my cousins came in, and all of his kids, my siblings came in, and his grandkids were there, and it was great. It was a great family celebration. All right. The grievance I have to air is not even with the fact that we got stuck on the tarmac before we flew out to return home for 2 hours. I have a not quite 2-year-old who's a spicy little meatball, all right? And she was deprived of a nap and was in a bad mood, and we were doing our very, very best to try and keep her quiet, keep her calm, as every parent on every flight in the history of the world does, okay? My grievance is not even with the fact that there was delays, because that's beyond the airline's control. It's beyond the pilot's control. My grievance comes with unsolicited advice okay? It is obvious that we are on the struggle bus in the back of the plane with this little, not quite 2-year-old terror, okay? We are doing everything possible. Bottles, blankies, the shows in the monitor, right? Trying to put headphones on her doesn't really work. Like, snack after snack after snack, toys, coloring books, all of it.
Standing up, sitting down.
It's obvious we're doing everything we can, right? Everyone around us knows we're doing everything. Parents,
no one's complaining. None of the other passengers are complaining, right?
No, and honestly, there was some young people by us that have no idea. There's just clearly no way they had kids, and they're looking and probably just like, oh, crap, I'm stuck next to this on the whole flight. It's the flight attendant that comes wandering back with this patronizing smile. Do we need some snacks, Dad? Oh, you think I haven't tried to give her a snack? Is that what you think the issue is? You don't notice the Cheez-Its littered around my seat? You don't see that there's a half-smashed banana stuck in the pocket on the back of the seat in front of me? You think I haven't tried to give her a snack? Do you need some snack? Do we need some snacks? What can we do? What can you do? You can get out of my face. I'm already dealing with a tiny terrorist right now. I don't need this interaction. If we were one of those people, and I've never even seen one of these, right? Where like they just throw the kid in the seat, let him scream, they don't do anything, the kid's scribbling all over the wall, whatever. You see those horror stories. But myself, my wife, and my 6-year-old all trying to help. The almost 4-year-old is just in her own world, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it was just an overtired, cranky baby stuck in a roasting hot airplane for almost 2 hours before the plane took off. Unsolicited advice to parents that are clearly trying, not helpful. I have a grievance against it. Now,
You just keep it moving, right? If you're the flight attendant there, you don't
just do what everyone else did. James, there were 30 people around that all did the same thing. You know what they did? They give us like the pained but somewhat sympathetic smile and nod, just like, yeah, that's tough.
been there.
Yep, that's tough. Sorry. And I'm like, to everyone, I'm really sorry. I know this sucks. And not one person was just like, yeah, keep that kid quiet, except the damn flight attendant. Grievance.
In like a passive-aggressive tone. Like, keep that kid quiet. Yeah, like, listen, what you need from the flight attendants in those circumstances is if there is a lot of unrest around you because of this situation, they're going over there and be like, hey, we apologize for the noise. What can we get for you? Like,
Yeah.
They don't need to be doing that to you.
James, I have a million drink vouchers because of my constant travel.
Yeah.
Right? That
And
build
you
up.
not and you not
And I don't
drinking.
imbibe. I don't
Yeah.
drink, right? So I told not that flight attendant, I told the other flight attendant, I'm like, look, if anyone is getting bothered by this and they would like a drink, I'm happy to cover the drink. I have probably 50 drink vouchers. And she laughed. She's like, oh, that's sweet. I'm like, I'm being very serious.
Like, I'm not going to use them anyway.
I
so you
pulled
might
out
as
my
well.
phone and I showed her. I'm like, these are just going to go to waste. If anyone needs a drink, if anyone mentions anything, offer them a drink on me. And she was like, oh, okay, I will. And to my knowledge, well, nobody took me up on it. Or if they did and they just comped their
You're
drink.
watching like a hawk. Oh, they didn't
Oh, it's
like
you.
it. Oh, okay.
You're the
Right,
problem
didn't
over
it?
there. No, but like everyone else took it,
34C.
everyone else took it like pros. You know what I mean? Everyone else kind of understood, oh, this sucks. We're all stuck here. It's hot in this plane. And we couldn't stand up most of the time because we were on the active taxiway. And so every 10 minutes, they would inch the plane like 6 feet forward and then stop again. All the passengers were taking it like pros. The actual pro was like, I'm impatient with your baby crying, and I feel like maybe you're not doing enough.
I have a question for you because just a hypothetical. If after your baby girl calms down, and same flight attendant approaches you with like man, that was rough. What can we get for you? Is it like not in the moment?
Yeah.
Like afterwards, as like a, hey, like you guys want any drinks? You guys want anything comped? Is that a different reaction?
For
that
sure.
elicit a different reaction from you?
Do
Because I
we-
wonder.
Do I need to hold her? Really? You think my daughter wants to go to you, a stranger?
Also, your wife's probably like, no, I'm not giving my baby to a stranger.
And look,
I know
flight
that's how
attendants-
my wife is. She's when people are like, can I like? She was at a Costco. Here's a grievance for on her behalf. She was at Costco, and the boy's binky, he spits it out of his mouth and it falls to the ground. And she goes and picks it up and goes to put it back in his mouth.
Oh, the stranger did?
The Costco person who checks the receipts. And she's like, and my wife's like, no.
Well, I will say
Like
this.
that's so. Anyway,
That's a Costco person who has probably 4 kids.
Yeah.
And is already through like the I'm worried about germs phase.
Yeah.
So that's funny to me.
Yeah, I laughed at how just upset my wife was about this, but then on the other hand, I kind of get it. It's like I don't want my stranger touching. I don't want a stranger touching my child, especially putting some like she's touching receipts all day.
Yeah.
With ink on her hands to put it back in the mouth. But I had to laugh too. I'm like, it sounds like she's just trying to be helpful, but
Yeah.
but that's her grievance.
And
don't.
And by the way,
strangers, don't touch my baby.
There's no perfect way for a flight attendant to handle that situation, probably. There's no perfect way for a stranger to handle the problem where you drop the binky or your kid's throwing a tantrum or whatever. It's really tough because, parents are frazzled. And I was not frazzled by the thing until that flight attendant made me hyper aware that this was – I already know it's bothering everyone. But everyone else was being pretty gracious, and that's what finally got me frazzled is some random lady coming up. And by the way, she wasn't even the one in the back of the plane. She was the one who came from the front of the plane.
Oh my gosh.
And was just like, hey, could you shut your kid up? I'm just like,
in the nicest tone possible.
And you know what?
Man.
There's probably someone out there airing a grievance against screaming babies on airplanes right now, and that's fine. You can air your grievance. Thank you for not saying anything to me while I was the parent struggling with it. Because I've been on both sides. I've been the person sitting next to her, in front of or behind the screaming baby. And here's my resolve. I will never do one thing to complicate that situation for those parents because it is miserable. You haven't done it yet with your kid, right?
And I haven't, and I haven't been. I don't travel near as much as you do. I haven't been in a situation as a passenger with something like that happening that really bothered me. So I haven't really been in that situation from any of the sides of it. I like what Spence Checketts says on the Drive 2 to 6, of course, about this. He brings up, like, if kids are being a little unruly on planes, like, he kind of has a how dare you get upset about that kind of feeling with that because of what you just described as the parent. That is, like, when you get upset at the kid, you're also the parent's feeling that, and it's making it worse.
For sure.
So, like, you got to give the kid grace and have the awareness that, like, whatever, even if it's not directed, like, you're not blaming the parent. If you shoot a dirty look back at their row, the parent's feeling that too. So that awareness is really important. So anyway, Spence has brought that up quite a bit. Listeners of the Drive know that's kind of resonated with me. Like, let's give each other grace, and if you're annoyed by it, that's fine. Just like wait later to show how annoyed you are. Have some composure a little bit because it just makes it worse if you express that in the moment.
All right, grievance from 1409 on the text line 877-353-0700. By the way, if you want to weigh in, my grievance is with Cody Campbell, the Texas Tech billionaire.
Okay.
You should have to earn success in college football. It doesn't feel right that you can buy players. Well, I understand the sentiment. You feel that sentiment. I'm assuming this is a Utah fan. You feel that sentiment as a Utah fan because right now it doesn't seem like you have the same assets at your disposal as Oregon, as Texas Tech, dare I say, as BYU, right? It feels wrong when you're on the negative side of it. Oh, you shouldn't be able to do this. Well, players getting compensated is probably long overdue in college sports. The fact that it comes through this model and it empowers this particular mechanism to change the fate of a football team or a basketball team or a softball team or whatever, I will listen to the argument that it is not ideal and it's not in like the true spirit of competition, but it is, unfortunately, it is the rule that exists right now in college football. Revenue sharing, I think, has helped a little bit. I think we talked about yesterday, I think the transfer portal windows being condensed down to one single window, I think that's going to help at least a little bit. But the bidding wars have happened in a more indirect manner for decades now in college football. It used to be you were at Texas Tech didn't have this necessarily, but you were at Texas, and at Texas or at Oklahoma State under that rule set, you had the nicest facility, you had the beautiful locker room, you had all of the amenities that at that time for college athletes were like as good as it gets, right? Better meals, better dorms, better locker rooms, and maybe, probably in a lot of cases, a $100 handshake here or there, or maybe even a bag of cash sometimes if we're talking about SEC schools and old school USC and things like that. But the current letter of the law is that Cody Campbell is operating in a free market system, and he gets to spend his billions of dollars however he wants, and his billions of dollars, he wants to spend at least some of those on making his Texas Tech football team good. Now, He has made his Texas Tech football team talented. We don't know yet if he's made them good. That's what we find out tomorrow.
Yeah. Tomorrow will be the first indication of what his millions of dollars what results from the millions of dollars he's given Texas Tech. By the way, what's really funny is you said the football team or the softball team or the basketball team, whatever. In the case of Texas Tech, not necessarily just Cody Campbell, but in the case of Texas Tech, they're funding all three. So, softball
gave somebody
is
$1
one
million.
of their, yeah, softball is the third sport that they're really that probably partially Cody Campbell, but other big donors are making a huge priority at Texas Tech. So anyway, I had to laugh that you're like this, and that happens to be the case for Texas Tech. They're really funding all three.
Najari Kennedy became the first college softball player to receive a $1 million name, image, and likeness deal to play for Texas Tech after transferring from Stanford in July 2024. Two-time NCAA Pitcher of the Year, led Texas Tech to its first Women's College World Series appearance. According to this, $1,050,024 in an NIL contract for Najari Kennedy.
And it paid off, like you just mentioned, their first Women's College World Series appearance. And I think, is she back this year? I don't know if that was her last year.
She is back, according to
multi-year investment there.
According to the Matador Club, that's the Red Raiders collective. She signed another 7-figure deal for 2025. So this college softball player transfers from Stanford, gets $1 million in 2024, and as recently as this is a Ramona Shelburne headline from June 6th, 2025. They have funded her another 7-figure deal, and I assume probably a raise after she brought you to the College Softball World Series. So maybe she's making like 1.2 this year. College softball player. Go back and remember when there was it was actually early 2000s. It was when Jenny Finch was like all the rage.
Yeah.
Arizona, University of Arizona, Team USA. You think that woman ever made $2 million as a professional softball player?
Yeah, at that time, I would guess no. And she was one of the greatest of all time.
3-time first-team All-American, Najari Kennedy.
So yeah, my reaction to that is I understand the feeling unfair because right now the perception anyway is that your school, if you're a University of Utah fan, texter, isn't able to do that. So there should be rules that level the playing field for everyone, even the schools that aren't able to do that at this time. And I agree that long term we should have stricter rules about these things. But as of right now, if Utah had a Cody Campbell, you would not be having this same feeling. So it kind of makes your feeling, because Utah doesn't have that right now, pretty invalid. You are very convenient to think that way. And unfortunately, those are the rules right now, which basically there's no rules around it. And I think that it honestly should give Utah fans and fans of other schools in the Power Four that don't necessarily have this big bankroll yet, and honestly give you a little bit of hope, because Texas Tech was nothing. And then out of nowhere, a former player who just happened to strike it big in the oil industry and is now one of the wealthiest people in the world has made Texas Tech a relevant program nationally. And if they can win the conference and make the playoff, they'll be looked at as a national championship contender for the next however many years. So, and that's possible for Utah under these rules too. Just need the right person, obviously with that amount of money, right group of people with that amount of money motivated to do that. And that doesn't take long, as we saw with Cody Campbell in Texas.
But to make our texter feel a little bit better, and hopefully to calm the grievance a little bit, although I'm glad you did air it. Buying talent has not worked in a perfectly direct, linear fashion in the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball.
Certainly not in Major League Baseball.
By
They've
itself,
had
the money is not enough to make you a championship team. The talent is certainly massively helpful, and it's something that everyone in the Big 12 Conference wants to have. But you got to have the right coaching. You got to have the right team culture. You got to have chemistry when you bring these guys together. I mean, they brought in 5 new defensive linemen. They brought in new defensive backs. They brought in high-profile wide receiver. They brought in a lot of stuff. Offensively, it's working. Defensively, we think it is. But when the rubber meets the road and when you get into Rice-Eccles Stadium tomorrow morning and you get a really, really tough team in front of you, are you guys all together? Are you high-paid? Are your high-paid free agents all pulling on the same rope? Are they all on the same page? Texas Tech thinks so, believes so, hopes so, and all of us are looking at it and saying, I hope that was some wasted money. We will find out to some extent tomorrow. 877-353-0700. Text in the answer to this trivia question for 2 tickets to Riley Green. July 23rd, 2026, Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater. Where does Utah rank in the Big 12 right now in sacks? Not as individuals. We know John Henry Daly is top in the conference and top in the country. As a team, where does Utah rank in quarterback sacks in the Big 12 Conference as of today? 2 tickets to Riley Green, if you can answer that correctly. 877-353-0700. Big thanks to Smith's Marketplace for having us out today. Swing by, take advantage of the fresh produce, the incredible deals in the deli section. They've got the deli trays. They've got the dips, they've got the chips, they've got the drinks, they've got the ice. At Smith's Marketplace, you can buy the folding tables, the furniture, the coolers, the TVs. You can buy everything you could possibly need for your Utah football viewing experience. Thanks for having us, Smith's Marketplace. Thanks to all of you for listening. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. We will see you at Rice-Eccles Stadium tomorrow for Utah versus Texas Tech. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.